Chapter 363. Looking at the rabbit with a shallow wound on its thigh, Sakura slowly pressed her palms covered in a layer of green light onto the rabbit's wound. At this moment, Xiao Ying's eyes were focused on the place where her hand was pressing. Her mental strength was also closely observing the recovery of the rabbit's wound. Feeling that it was about time, Sakura slowly moved her hands away. The green light that was originally attached to her hands also slowly dissipated. Grabbing the rabbit and walking in front of Nangongzhe, Sakura said to Nangongzhe as if she was presenting a treasure. "Uncle Nangong, come and check. This time, I feel that I have done a perfect job. I must have healed the little rabbit's wound." Sakura's face was filled with pride. This was because she had failed a few times before. The healing technique she used was either completely ineffective, or the wound was not completely healed. This time, Sakura felt that she had used the healing technique to its maximum potential. There should be no problems. Is that so? Then I will help you check. Hearing Sakura's confident words, Nangongzhe also smiled as he took the rabbit from Sakura's hands. The little rabbit that was originally trembling and panicking in Sakura's hands immediately calmed down when it was in Nangongzhe's hands. Its red eyes no longer showed any panic. Instead, it showed a sense of enjoyment. It was obviously affected by the natural energy that occasionally drifted from Nangongzhe's body. Nangongzhe's index finger brushed past the original wound on the rabbit's thigh. Nangongzhe was using his internal energy to slowly sense the condition of the rabbit's wound. Soon, Nangongzhe withdrew his finger and said to Sakura. "Indeed, compared to before, your healing technique has improved a lot. But this time, there are still some flaws. Although the wound on the rabbit's body is not big, it is still a bit deep. The muscle tissue on its thigh has also been damaged to a certain extent. But this time, your treatment only healed the rabbit's surface. Some of the internal structures are still bleeding." After saying that, Nangongzhe also took the rabbit in front of Sakura. He gently removed the fur from the wound, allowing Sakura to see the rabbit's skin. Obviously, the original injured part of the rabbit was not only showing the freshly healed pink, but also some slightly thicker red blood. This was a phenomenon caused by internal bleeding. Although Sakura's wound was healed this time, it was still not perfect. With Nangongzhe's understanding of Tsunade, if it was only to this extent, she would definitely not be allowed to pass the assessment. After hearing Nangongzhe's evaluation, Sakura's originally excited little face became gloomy at the moment. Nangongzhe naturally understood that Sakura was in a dead end of self-denial at the moment, so he stretched out his hand and touched Sakura's pink hair, and very gently said to Sakura. "Don't be discouraged. Medical ninjutsu itself is a very difficult type of ninjutsu to use. Even the most basic healing technique needs hard work to achieve. You have only been exposed to healing for a day or two, and you can already use your own chakra to stimulate cell regeneration. This is already a good level. Your Nei-san has also learned medical ninjutsu systematically. If you really want to improve yourself, it's better to ask your Nei-san." While comforting Sakura, Nangongzhe also glanced at Nangong-ro, who was sitting next to him and seemed a little absent-minded at the moment. After hearing Nangongzhe's words, Sakura was also surprised. After all, medical ninjutsu is a rare species in the whole ninja world, and this Nei-san, who is very familiar with her, is actually a medical ninjutsu who has received systematic medical ninjutsu, which made Sakura feel incredible for a while. Although Nangong-ro seemed a little absent-minded, but what Nangongzhe said just now was still heard by Nangong-ro. Knowing that she can help Sakura, Nangong-ro said with a gentle smile on her face, "Sakura, if you really want to achieve something in medical ninjutsu, I naturally have to help you achieve your goal. But now you still have to try to use healing to heal some living creatures first, and accumulate some experience in using medical ninjutsu. Only in this way can I observe your mistakes and then correct some of your problems." After listening to Nangong-ro's words, Sakura also nodded and returned to the operating table in Nangongzhe's yard where she had just used healing. She quickly cut a wound on the rabbit's body with kunai and continued to use healing to heal this wound. At this time, Yichui, who was sitting not far from Nangongzhe, waved her hand and called Nangongzhe. Although Nangongzhe was a little puzzled, he still sat beside Yichui and waited for Yichui to speak. "Zhe. Is it a blessing or a curse to become a medical ninjutsu?" Yichui looked at her daughter, Sakura, who was still diligently practicing healing, and her eyes were full of worry for her daughter. Yichui, who is not a ninja, still has a smattering of knowledge about medical ninjutsu, so when she saw her daughter wanting to become a medical ninjutsu, Yichui couldn't help but ask Nangongzhe, who is the strongest person she knows. "Yabuki, to be honest, as a ninja, there is no such thing as complete safety. But medical ninjutsu is different from other ninjas who only focus on combat power. If it is a one-on-one confrontation, ordinary medical ninjutsu may not play a big role, but in the face of a large-scale melee, medical ninjutsu is the group of people with the strongest survivability." Recalling his combat experience, Nangongzhe explained to Yichui. However, Nangongzhe still has some words that he didn't say to Yichui. Medical ninjutsu is not only good at healing, but every qualified medical ninjutsu is also a qualified poison master, whether it is assassination or ambush, they are good at it. But such words are naturally not suitable for Yichui, who may become a medical ninjutsu, so Nangongzhe quietly covered up these things. When Yichui heard that medical ninjutsu is the most life-saving profession, the relaxed look in her eyes was so clear that Nangongzhe also sighed in his heart. Chapter 364. There has never been absolute security in this world. Nangongzhe knows this, Sakura knows this, even Yichui who is not a ninja knows this. But as a mother, Yichui still hopes that her child can live a healthy, happy, and safe life. Such requirements are not harsh, but such requirements are so difficult to achieve in a world like the shinobi world. In the shinobi world, there are countless people who have ulterior motives and are good at currying favor. Every day in different places, no one knows how many fights and conspiracies are staged. If a shinobi world war breaks out in an unlucky year, then whether it is ninja or civilians, they will suffer great losses. Why is the Akatsuki, as a shinobi village with such a low starting point, can be so tyrannical to such a point? To a large extent, it is because the Akatsuki's concept of bringing peace to the shinobi world has been recognized by many people. Those who have been hurt because of the war voluntarily joined the Akatsuki, making the Akatsuki stronger step by step. If you have to find a reason to describe why the Akatsuki can become so tyrannical, in addition to Pain's own Rinnegan, in fact, it is more because of the people's desire. In the shinobi world, whether it is ninja or civilians, in fact, most of them yearn for peace, and the Akatsuki is a huge banner when the people of the shinobi world need it most. But now, because the Akatsuki has attacked the Blood Cloth Pavilion and Nangongzhe is nominally affiliated with the Woodleaf Village, Nangongzhe has been standing on the opposite side of the Akatsuki. Moreover, in Nangongzhe's view, although the Akatsuki has a good hand, he doesn't know why they always play very bad. Obviously, the Akatsuki has such a grand goal of pacifying the shinobi world, but what Nangongzhe saw time and time again is the madness and unscrupulousness of the Akatsuki's members. Whether it is the unscrupulous when releasing the Nine Tails to destroy the Woodleaf Village, the arrogance when attacking the Blood Cloth Pavilion, or driving the tailed beasts in Little Linger's former residence, causing people to suffer. Was such behavior really worthy of such a grand goal? After saying so much, in fact, Nangongzhe and Akatsuki are already standing on opposite sides, regardless of whether it will be Woodleaf representing the old forces of the shinobi world or the new forces represented by Akatsuki in the future. In the end, which side will have the advantage? Nangongzhe could only choose to fully invest in the Woodleaf forces, or completely withdraw the power of Blood Cloth Pavilion and hide. There was no possibility of reconciliation with Akatsuki. Tsunade looked at the documents in her hand with a serious face, because she was holding a few new genin who were expected to be taught directly by Tsunade after many rounds of selection. Among them, Sakura Haruno, Ino Yamanaka, and Hyuga Hinata were on the list. As a person with a prominent background and a high position in Woodleaf for a long time, Tsunade naturally picked out these three girls quickly. To be honest, these three people were extremely rare, whether it was talent or hard work, so they smoothly passed through many tests and entered the final level, which was Tsunade's self-selection time. With Tsunade's political sensitivity, she already knew that these three children were Watergate's personal goods, and they were also Watergate's means to pave the way for his children. After a few years, as long as these three children don't die young, they will become the mainstay of Woodleaf, and they will also become important supporters of Naruto becoming Hokage. Tsunade knew Watergate's mind, but Tsunade didn't want to become a puppet in Watergate's hands. Of course, these three people need to be chosen, but she can't choose all of them, otherwise she will be at a disadvantage. This is why Tsunade's face was so serious at the moment. It was really difficult to choose. Needless to say, Hinata was the eldest daughter of the current head of the Hyuga family. Although some news said that Hinata wasn't so valued, her identity was still there. Ino, the heir of the Ino Shikacho Yamanaka family. A long time ago, these three families firmly stood on the side of Hokage, and even had a lot of relationship with Tsunade. Giving up like this would be tantamount to ruining her reputation. Sakura, although born a civilian, has a close relationship with Nangongja, Woodleaf's new powerhouse. It was almost as if Nangongja raised her as his own daughter. After all, Tsunade's strength will only decline with the increase of age, and Nangongja is young and strong. When the time comes, she will have to trouble Nangongja to take care of her. Watergate's personal goods are difficult to deal with. Not only does it involve the interests of Watergate's own, but it also involves the interests of more people. If one of them is given up, it will cause bad consequences. Tsunade also felt very difficult at the moment. The pen with some cinnabar was raised and lowered several times, but there was no way to make a comment on the materials in front of her. Hyuga family is the past, Ino Shikacho is the present, and Nangongja is the future. These three things, what should she choose? After careful consideration, Tsunade finally raised her hand and wrote the word "rejected" on the document in her hand. And on this document, Hinata's name was written on it. This is the choice made by Tsunade. It has nothing to do with Sakura, Ino, or Hinata's talent. It's just a choice for her future situation after weighing the pros and cons. Nangongja himself is a strong person in the growth period. There is no need to offend such a person. Ino Shikacho family works hard and has a close relationship with the Hokage clan. It is natural for her to give them face. But Hyuga family, as one of the two major Woodleaf clans, now that the Uchiha clan is destroyed and Hyuga family dominates, everyone knows that Hyuga family is a grasshopper in the autumn and can only barely survive. Therefore, Tsunade made the choice to give up accepting Hinata as a disciple, but she can't end it so casually. So Tsunade put down the things in her hand and called her disciple, Shizun. Shizun, go and get my medical ninjutsu notes and some gifts for visiting. We will go out together in a while. Hearing Tsunade's words, Shizun couldn't react for a while. After all, Tsunade doesn't like such things. Tsunade once said that instead of wasting time on meaningless things like visiting each other and greeting each other, it's more interesting to drink a little wine and open a gambling house. However, obviously, after returning to Woodleaf, Tsunade has begun to change her way of life. She doesn't know whether it's good or bad. Chapter 365. Standing in front of the Hyuga family's gate, Tsunade was in a trance. Although it seems that the Hyuga family is still a big Woodleaf family, Tsunade didn't know why she felt that the Hyuga family was declining from the inside out. Sure enough, no matter how glorious it was, there will always be a day of decline. Tsunade didn't know why, but she suddenly had such a thought in her mind. She asked Shizun to go to the gate and explained her purpose to the gatekeeper. Tsunade stood at the gate and waited for someone to welcome her in. But unexpectedly, Hyuga Hayashi, as the patriarch of the Hyuga clan, actually walked out of the gate of the Hyuga clan at this moment while holding the hand of his youngest daughter, Hyuga Hanabi. Seeing Hyuga Hayashi, even as a Sannin, Tsunade had to give some face to the Hyuga family. So she hurried a few steps forward and slightly bowed to Hayashi. I thought it was the younger generation of the Hyuga family who came to greet us, but I didn't expect the head of the Hyuga family to personally come out to greet us. We are visitors, how can the head of the family come out to greet us? As a member of a big family, Tsunade naturally understood that it was a great honor for the head of the Hyuga family, Hyuga Hayashi, to personally come out to greet them. She remembered that she came to visit because of the Hyuga family's face. Even Tsunade felt a little guilty. It's okay, it's okay. Tsunade-sama is a direct descendant of the Senju family. Compared to the Hyuga family, it's a real family. It's not a big deal for me to come out to greet you. You and I shouldn't stand at the gate like this, please come in for a chat. With that said, Hyuga Hayashi made a gesture, apparently inviting Tsunade and Shizun to enter the Hyuga family's land. Then it's better to accept. Tsunade was a forthright person. When she heard Hayashi's words, she naturally didn't have any resistance. Instead, she accepted Hayashi's invitation. As the head of the clan, Hyuga Hayashi's courtyard was naturally located in the center of the Hyuga clan. Compared to the other Hyuga houses, Hyuga Hayashi's courtyard was large, but it didn't have any ostentatious extravagance. Instead, it exuded a simple aura. Perhaps this was the spirit of the Hyuga family? After all, in Tsunade's impression, most Hyuga ninjas were somewhat old-fashioned and conservative. Led by Hyuga Hayashi, the four of them entered the courtyard belonging to the patriarch. They sat in a tea house. After inviting Tsunade and Shizun to sit down, Hyuga Hayashi began to wash his hands, rinse his mouth, and prepare for the tea ceremony. Knowing that Hayashi was following the ancient etiquette of serving tea to the guests, Tsunade naturally watched patiently as Hayashi lit the charcoal, boiled the water, and made the tea step by step. This kind of tea ceremony was very time-consuming. Even if Hyuga Hayashi's movements were very agile, it still took nearly half an hour. Tsunade and Shizun, who usually didn't like to kneel, felt uncomfortable at this moment. Looking at Hyuga Hanabi, who came with Hayashi, the little girl sat steadily at the moment as if she was already used to it. Please. Holding a huge teacup, Hayashi's left hand held the bottom of the teacup, and his right hand held the edge of the teacup. He slowly rotated the teacup in his hand, and the bright yellow pattern vaguely resembling a flower on the blue-gray teacup was facing Tsunade. He placed the teacup on his forehead and handed it to Tsunade. After seeing Hayashi handing over the teacup to her, the solemn feeling from the bloodline immediately emerged from Tsunade's heart. Tsunade straightened her body and respectfully reached out her hands to take the teacup handed over by Hyuga Hayashi. Holding the bottom of the teacup with her left hand and the edge of the teacup with her right hand, Tsunade turned the yellow pattern that was originally facing her towards Hyuga Hayashi again. Tsunade raised the teacup to her forehead, bowed slightly to show her gratitude, and put the teacup in her hand in front of her. Then Tsunade reached out and picked up the teacup again, and finally drank the sticky tea in her mouth. This procedure not only looked cumbersome, but every action had extremely strict rules. Whether it was the angle of the arm bend or the way the body leans forward, there were certain rules. If one didn't come from a big family, it would take a long time to be familiar with this series of rules. The tea rolled on the tip of Tsunade's tongue, and after swallowing the tea into her stomach, Tsunade also expressed her respect for Hyuga Hayashi's tea ceremony very respectfully. With this, the tea tasting was finally over. And the real show will begin here. Lord, in fact, this time I came to the Hyuga clan to apologize. Facing the head of the Hyuga clan, Tsunade maintained the proper respect to Hyuga Hayashi. Perhaps because he has been in a high position for a long time, although Tsunade said that she came to apologize to him, Hyuga Hayashi's expression didn't change. It was as if the person Tsunade wanted to apologize to wasn't him. Tsunade-sama, why do you say that? In fact, whether it's your situation or the Hyuga clan situation, we know each other's situation very well. There's no right or wrong in this matter. If it weren't for some people in the clan who can't see the situation clearly, in fact, this drama wouldn't have happened. Although the two didn't say it explicitly, everyone knew that this so-called drama was about Hinata's participation in the medical ninja training program. As the head of the clan, Hayashi naturally knew that the Hyuga clan was in its last days. No matter what kind of battle, the Hyuga clan was the most likely to be sacrificed. Although it's rumored that I don't like my eldest daughter very much, how can a parent be so cold-blooded? Hanabi is my child, and Hinata is also my child. This time, this group of people urged my daughter to go up and embarrass herself. No matter what, I won't let my child lose face. Hayashi's words, no matter how you listen to it, sounded a little threatening. Tsunade had a violent temper, and she would directly explode if the slightest displeased her. But being threatened by Hayashi here, Tsunade still didn't make a scene. Instead, she was very calm and said to Hayashi, "You and I are just chess pieces on someone else's chessboard. No matter what we do, it's actually under someone else's control. This time, it's true that I lost face for the Hyuga clan, so I will try my best to get back the face you lost. I also brought my medical notes. Although it's not something precious, it's still a small token of my sincerity." Chapter 366. As a Hyuga with Byakugan, which can see through the human body and directly observe the human body's tendons and chakra flow, she has a unique condition to become a medical ninja. Even Hyuga Hinata, who is now learning under a genjutsu ninja like Kurenai, gradually began to come into contact with medical ninjutsu through Kurenai's introduction. At this moment, Tsunade handed over the medical notes that recorded many of her theories and experiences. It was simply a treasure for the Hyuga family. In fact, the Hyuga family let Hinata participate in such a medical ninja training program in order to establish a friendship with Tsunade. Although it sounds like Hinata was not selected, there is no way to directly unite Tsunade and the Hyuga family. But as a politically sensitive person, Tsunade has already noticed that she has to establish a good relationship with a family like the Hyuga family. The Senju family has gradually declined in the Shinobi World War and the internal consumption of wood leaf. Now, they can't even compare to some small families in the wood leaf village. Over the years, no ninja has awakened wood release, so the Senju family can only give Tsunade some nominal help. If she wants to be free and not live as a puppet of others in the wood leaf village, Tsunade must join forces with the Hyuga family. And this medical note was Tsunade's gift to the Hyuga family. You and I actually understand that the status of master and apprentice is actually a guarantee of a relationship. In the past, the Hyuga family was also a family that competed for the hegemony of the shinobi world with the Uchiha family and the Senju family. But now, only the Hyuga family still retains the superficial glory on the surface. But you and I both know that Konoha can't tolerate a single family that dominates the village. The Senju family and the Uchiha family are examples, so you and I are a community of interests. Why do we have to add the shackles of master and apprentice? Tsunade is not a fool, and Hyuga Hayashi is also very smart after many years of experience. So when Tsunade talked to Hyuga Hayashi, she didn't play any language tricks to prove her astuteness. Instead, she began to talk with Hayashi very openly about the dilemma they faced and the only solution, alliance. You're right. Listening to Tsunade's words, Hayashi was silent for a moment. How could he not understand the truth of the saying, a tall tree attracts the wind? But the Hyuga family can't retreat, because once they retreat, they will be eaten without leaving any bones behind. From today onwards, the Hyuga family and you, Tsunade-sama, are the strongest allies. It's not because of how ambitious we are, nor is it because of how broad-minded we are. We just want to protect ourselves so that we can get the freedom and safety we deserve. Tsunade reached out and shook Hayashi's hand. Although she said that she has no ambition and big heart, at this moment, it's not easy to ignore the light in their eyes. No desire? It's easier said than done. The reason why she said that she has no desire is because she doesn't have the ability to realize her desire. If there came a day when their abilities reached the edge of their desires, then every single one of them would become the craziest lunatic, struggling and roaring as they tried to turn their desires into reality. While Tsunade and Hayashi were thinking about each other's future, Shizune and Hanabi didn't seem to be frightened by their sensei father's words at all. Instead, they were very dedicated to their duties and stimulated their 5 senses to the maximum, quietly perceiving whether someone might be monitoring them. In the Hokage's office, an Umbu was kneeling in front of Watergate at this moment. It seemed that he had just reported some important information and was waiting for Watergate's next order. On the other hand, Minato was unhurriedly stroking his chin with his fingers as if he was thinking about something. But at this moment, Minato's eyes shone brightly as if he had seen something interesting. She's worthy of being from a big family. Even if her family is in decline, she's still familiar with a set of methods. She just handed me the list of people who passed, but then she brought her men to the Hyuga family's door. Even the old stubborn Hyuga Hayashi personally went out to greet Tsunade's arrival. I didn't expect Tsunade's sense of smell to be so sharp. Isn't it good to be a clay bodhisattva worshipped by people? Why did she have to make so much trouble? In the end, it's really unknown who will suffer. Or is it that some of the things that happened in the Senju clan have made it difficult for this strong woman to suppress the backlog in her heart? Watergate murmured unconsciously, but the Umbu kneeling in front of Watergate was already trembling at this moment. These things, is it something that I can casually know? Although I can guarantee that I will never reveal a word, but my guarantee is not an effective way to make people feel at ease. I'm just a small Umbu who passes information. Usually, I pass information in letters sealed with scorched lacquer. But now, I can hear a lot of things that I shouldn't tell outsiders. So, can I really leave the Hokage's office intact? Watergate also seemed to be aware of the abnormality of the Umbu in front of him. The quick-witted Watergate has quickly understood the thoughts in the Umbu's heart. He stood up from his position and slowly walked to the side of the Umbu. His slender fingers gently rested on the Umbu's shoulder. Well, don't be afraid. You're my direct subordinate in the Dark Unit, and you can be considered as my confidant. Although these things came from my mouth, you don't have to mind, as long as you don't say it, it doesn't matter. You go to Nangong's house and ask Nangong to come over, I have something to discuss with him. Although Watergate's words were not so beautiful, but it made the Umbu feel warm in his heart. As the supreme leader of a shinobi village, Minato's means of understanding people's hearts can be said to be extremely superb. The Umbu kneeling in front of him is actually a new member of the Umbu under the Hokage. Minato's appearance at the moment is actually a kind of encouragement and test for his own Umbu. In the next month, there will be a confidant of Minato closely watching this Umbu to see if he is trustworthy. If he is trustworthy, naturally, everyone will be happy. If he is not trustworthy, then the result is naturally needless to say. A useless and untrustworthy person who has information that he shouldn't know, naturally, he will be given the home he deserves. Chapter 367. The efficiency of the Umbu ninja was quite good, and he quickly brought Nangongja, who had just been summoned by Watergate, to the Hokage's office. This little ninja, who was scared to death by Watergate, didn't dare to tell anyone that he didn't dare to directly appear in front of Nangongja as usual, but he respectfully knocked on the door of Nangongja's house, and waited for a while until Nangongja opened the door for him. Throughout his career as an Umbu, this was simply the most embarrassing moment for him. But when this little Umbu was standing near Nangongja's house, he didn't dare to directly appear in someone else's house as usual. Because the feeling of danger was so clear, it was like a sword had been placed on his neck, so he didn't dare to be the slightest bit presumptuous. No one would tell this little Umbu that in fact, Nangongja had already discovered him a long time ago. Nangongja has always been very disgusted with the behavior of Umbu ninjas directly appearing in his house regardless of the occasion, so the moment he discovered this Umbu, Nangongja has already used his which he has been practicing for many years to suppress this little Umbu, and maybe this little Umbu will know what to do. Hokage-sama, I don't know why you called me here. Facing Watergate, Nangongja wasn't very respectful, but he also maintained the proper interests. The salute was reasonable, but it also seemed to be 1,000 miles away. Watergate saw Nangongja's attitude, but he wasn't angry. Instead, he walked to Nangongja's side with a smile, and prepared to pat Nangongja's shoulder to show his kindness. When he found that Watergate wanted to pat his shoulder, Nangongja turned his body directly to avoid Watergate's action. But he didn't pat his shoulder, so Watergate's hand naturally made an ugly arc in the air. Even the little Umbu standing next to him and the few bodyguards hiding in the shadows saw Nangongja's alienation and distrust towards Watergate again and again. They felt uncomfortable and hungry in their hearts. But Watergate still maintained a smile, and pulled out a chair next to him and said to Nangongja, "You and I don't have to be so polite, please take a seat, I'll tell you the purpose of calling you here today." Nangongja sat on the chair that Watergate pulled out for him just now without any self-awareness. Watergate looked at Nangongja helplessly and shook his head, then sat on the spacious chair behind the table. For some reason, Nangongja and Watergate didn't say anything. Finally, Watergate, because he had something to ask of Nangongja, finally took the initiative to speak. "Today, I specially called you here to ask for your opinion on something." Hearing Watergate's words, Nangongja also sat up slightly, and said to Watergate, "Please speak." Watergate tidied up his sleeves a little, sat up from the chair, and said to Nangongja, "As far as I know, Nangong Jonin was a teacher in the ninja school for a period of time. Although it wasn't a long time, every child who was taught by you in the ninja school praised you. Although we have been deliberately hiding it in the past few years, Woodleaf Ninja has indeed reached the point of shortage. After the last Shinobi World War, there were a large number of casualties in our ninja village. And over the years, the original Jonin has gradually aged and their strength has declined, and the number of new Jonin is indeed not as large as the number of retired Jonin. Although some good seedlings have appeared in the ninja school in recent years, it still takes time for them to grow up. So, I invited you here this time to invite you to be the executor of the combat ninja training plan that was passed along with the medical ninja training plan, so that your experience and your strength can provide help to the children of Woodleaf Village who have not yet grown up, so that they can grow up quickly. Not only you, I also invited a lot of famous Woodleaf ninjas. Mike Guy who teaches taijutsu, Kakashi who teaches ninjutsu, Kurenai who teaches genjutsu, and many other strong jonin. As long as we can work together, Woodleaf Village will definitely be able to. The more Watergate said, the more excited he became. His eyes had lost the original gentle light, and it was replaced by a strong sense of aggression. Just when Watergate was talking, Nangongja slowly stretched out his hand and pressed it in the air, indicating that Watergate didn't need to continue. Just now, no matter how Minato was alienated and distrusted by Nangongja, he could still maintain a gentle attitude. However, when Nangongja interrupted Minato's vision for the future, Minato felt a trace of anger that couldn't be suppressed. In an instant, Watergate's face became distorted. But soon Watergate suppressed this anger with his own reason, and the originally distorted face returned to a gentle and elegant appearance. "Hokage-sama, I think you may have misunderstood." Nangongja's somewhat cold voice slowly flowed out of his mouth after Watergate's mood calmed down. "Previously, I worked in the ninja school because my family was going to school at that time, and I didn't feel at ease leaving her alone in the school, so I asked Hokage-sama of 3 generations to arrange a small position in the school for me. As for what you said about me being loved by the students, I can only say that I'm not worthy of it, because what I do in the Ninja Academy is no different from some other teachers, and I'm even the kind of teacher who is more difficult to understand the hearts of the children. Combat ninja is indeed extremely beneficial to Woodleaf, but I'm not a traditional ninja who practices internal energy. Whether it's my experience or my strength, it's not enough to bear such a heavy responsibility. Some of the ninjas listed by Hokage-sama before are fully capable of bearing the heavy responsibility of training the backbone of Woodleaf. If I'm added to them, wouldn't it be somewhat superfluous? So, I ask Hokage-sama to take back the order. If you need me to do some small things, of course, it's not a problem, but such an important task of training the future generations, I'm really powerless." As he spoke, Nangongja also slowly stood up. He clasped his hands together and gently bowed to Shui Men to express his unwillingness to take up the position. Chapter 368. In fact, when Watergate said to Nangongja that he needed Nangongja's help to train ninjas to ensure the basic strength of Woodleaf Village, Nangongja didn't believe a word of it. Over the years, as the head of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, Nangongja has also accumulated a certain amount of political experience. Whether its advantages or disadvantages, they can't be directly put on the surface. At least 70% of what is said on the surface is a lie to achieve one's own goals. Woodleaf Village indeed suffered a lot of losses in the previous Third Shinobi World War, and there is a trend of a lack of manpower. But Woodleaf Village wasn't the only one that was damaged in the Shinobi World War. The other 4 large shinobi villages also suffered a lot. So what does Watergate have to worry about? At least in the next few years, these shinobi villages won't be able to launch a large-scale war. Why does Watergate have to be so eager to train Woodleaf Village's new strength? After thinking about it, Nangongja can only conclude that Watergate didn't do it for self-protection, but for improvement. Gathering all the high-end strength in the shinobi village, delaying the number of missions completed, and training more ninjas with combat ability. No matter how you think about it, it doesn't seem like something that a conservative person would do, right? And on the other hand, all the shinobi villages are basically in a weak period. As long as he can become stronger, even if he isn't overwhelmingly strong, he can start with the medium-sized shinobi villages and swallow their strength step by step, and then if the time is right, he can even bite off a piece of meat from the other large shinobi villages. Such a thing is too tempting, and even if the other 4 large shinobi villages find out about Woodleaf Village's changes, they can't do anything, because accepting and completing missions is the guarantee of their survival. Woodleaf Village has a large business, so it's not a big deal to slightly reduce the number of missions, but the other shinobi villages can't wait to get more missions instead of refusing to complete them. Therefore, in order to not be involved in such a quagmire, even if he and Watergate are not happy, Nangongja won't agree to Watergate's plan. In fact, what he wants is just a stable life. Since Woodleaf Village can't achieve his goal, Nangongja can live without Woodleaf. For Nangongja, Woodleaf is just an ordinary place where he lives, and it doesn't matter if he changes it. But for Woodleaf, Nangongja is a huge sign and a protective umbrella at the moment. They can't let Nangongja go, and even coax Nangongja to live a good life in Woodleaf. Don't worry, I already understand what you mean. I'm not a person who will force people to do things, Nangongjonin. You just need to remember that Woodleaf is a very good place, and sometimes you need to help. Watergate said to Nangongja as he slowly opened Nangongja's hands. He didn't seem to care about Nangongja at all. Instead, he seemed to be very concerned about Nangongja. After that, Watergate and Nangongja casually talked about some common topics, and Watergate specifically asked one of his shadow guards to send Nangongja out of Hokage's office. After that, whether Watergate acted alone in his office, no one knows, but being treated like this by Nangongja, no one would be in a good mood, right? However, Nangongja didn't care. Anyway, he didn't have to stay in Woodleaf. Whether it was the action against Danzo or the act of bringing his family back to Woodleaf, in fact, Nangongja did it casually. There was no need to completely sell his life to Watergate because of these things. This was simply unrealistic. The medical ninja training program and the combat ninja training program were in full swing inside Woodleaf at this moment. The entire Woodleaf was shrouded in a positive mood, but Nangongja was completely unaffected. He just stayed at home every day and didn't show up. Every day, Nangongja didn't even touch Nangongja's sword, let alone practice swordsmanship day and night like before, except for some work from the blood-clothed pavilion. On the contrary, Nangongja bought a lot of books that had nothing to do with fighting. He just stayed at home all day and read books. It was very uncomfortable. Nangong Ro, Mashiro, and Little Linger, who lived with Nangongzhe, were also very curious. Nangongzhe, who didn't like such literary things in the past, suddenly read such literary books that he usually disdained. However, they were also very happy that Nangongzhe could stay at home like this. After all, Nangongzhe could be said to have become a good family man. Every day he would go to the market with Nangong Ro to buy ingredients for today's meal. When it was time to eat, he would stay in the kitchen with Mashiro to prepare 3 meals a day, which was quite decent. When he was free, he would bring Little Linger, who loved to play, to a beautiful place to have a few cookouts. He was simply too happy. Day by day, Nangongzhe was as excited as if he had retired early. The most obvious change was that his originally streamlined but very defined muscles were slowly becoming soft. Her originally thin face gradually became more plump, and her entire person looked more gentle. In the beginning, whether it was Watergate or Woodleaf Village, some of the families who paid attention to Nangongzhe's changes, they still observed Nangongzhe's daily life, afraid that Nangongzhe was secretly preparing some kind of plan. However, as Nangongzhe continued to live like this, even his originally sharp aura began to slowly disappear. Watergate and the other families also quietly moved their eyes away from Nangongzhe's body. After all, everyone had their own things to do. It was not worthwhile to waste their resources on a person who only cared about his daily life. Time passed quietly, and the number of books Nangongzhe read had increased from the original few books to the number of books that filled several bookshelves. In the past 3 years, Nangongzhe had almost always maintained the life of a retired official. Moreover, if one took a closer look at the books on the bookshelves, one would notice that many of the books had very obvious traces of flipping. Some of the books even looked like they were unglued, which was enough to prove that Nangongzhe had indeed read many books. Chapter 369. Isn't this Nangongzhe's son? Did you come out to buy vegetables? Come and see Auntie, you just picked some vegetables from the field today. It's still fresh, why don't you bring some home for the little girls to try? It was another early morning. Nangongzhe was holding a woven shopping bag that looked like it had been used for a long time. He was like a family cook as he shuttled between the vegetable stalls. An auntie who seemed to be familiar with Nangongzhe greeted Nangongzhe warmly. Her attitude was as friendly as seeing her own nephew. Nangongzhe also showed a very gentle smile on his face. He slowly walked in front of the auntie, picked up a few vegetables and carefully looked at them. From time to time, he stretched out his hand and broke off a few leaves that didn't look so good or had a little bit of wormhole. The auntie looked at Nangongzhe breaking off pieces of vegetables, but she didn't seem angry at all. Instead, she had a smile on her face. Nangongzhe put all the vegetables he picked and the leaves he just broke off on the auntie's scale. Obviously, he wanted to weigh these leaves together with the vegetables. Looking at some of the vegetables he just took, Nangongzhe thought for a moment, as if he felt that it wasn't enough for his family. He squatted in front of some other vegetables and carefully picked them. While he was choosing, Nangongzhe also struck up a conversation with the middle-aged woman. Auntie, your son is obviously a ninja, why are you still buying vegetables? Although it's good to find something to kill time, after all, you're old, it's not good to wake up early and sleep late every day. Obviously, Nangongzhe chatted a lot with the auntie, so he knew about the situation of the auntie's family. When the auntie heard Nangongzhe's words, the smile on her face was a little bit flaunting and full of simplicity. My son is also lucky. After becoming a genin, he was selected to be in the training program. Now, he comes back every day and falls asleep on the bed like a dead pig. He's not as good as you, who can help with the housework every day. Obviously, she was belittling her son, but no matter how you listened to it, it felt like she was showing off. It's already extremely difficult for a civilian to become a ninja, not to mention that her own child was selected to participate in such a high-sounding plan. The vegetable auntie often bragged about her child to others. Although her behavior was quite unscrupulous, Nangongja liked it because it was more realistic and interesting. Auntie, I don't have any special skills. Back then, I relied on selling vegetables to raise my Jiro into a ninja bit by bit. Although my son has made a lot of money for the family over the years, I can't stay idle. I really don't want to waste such a good vegetable garden, so I come here every day to sell vegetables. It can be considered as finding a job for myself to subsidize the family. Both Nangongja and the auntie didn't take it seriously. They were just chatting while they were picking vegetables. Therefore, Nangongja didn't persist in persuading the auntie to go home and spend her old age in peace, but continued to pick the vegetables he needed. Just when Nangongja was seriously selecting the vegetables he needed, a very agile figure passed over Nangongja's head. The speed was so fast that no one could see the person's face clearly. They could only see that the person had a gorgeous golden hair like the sun. In Konoha, unless there is something urgent, most of the ninjas are very polite to walk on the streets instead of flying around on the rooftops. On the other hand, some young children who have just learned how to use chakra, so they like to jump around on the roof to play. The figure that just passed over Nangongja's head was obviously very big. It was not the size of a child's body. Really? I don't know what's so urgent, but he's in such a hurry. Although she had seen a lot, it was still very uncomfortable to suddenly have a person fly over her head. The auntie looked at the figure that flew away and muttered in her mouth. Nangongja, on the other hand, wasn't too concerned about someone flying over his head. Instead, he glanced at the white-haired, middle-aged man who was staring helplessly at the fleeing figure at the corner of the street with great interest. Auntie, I'll leave these vegetables with you first. I saw someone I know, so I'll go and say hello first. I'll come back and get these things later, what do you think? The auntie looked at Nangongja's face and naturally knew that Nangongja should have something to do. So she agreed and took the vegetables that Nangongja just picked out and put them beside her, waiting for Nangongja to come back and get it later. After Nangongja smiled at the auntie, he slowly walked to the corner of the street and patted the shoulder of the white-haired man who looked quite old. Jiraiya-sama, it's been a long time. Hearing the familiar voice, Jiraiya also turned his head and saw Nangongja patting his shoulder. In the past 3 years, Nangongja has changed a lot. His slightly rounder face and less sharp breath made Jiraiya a little stunned for a while before he recognized Nangongja. Yeah, I think Naruto is almost done with his training. So I brought this child back. But you have changed a lot in the past few years, I didn't recognize you for a while. Unlike Watergate, who has become more and more majestic over the years, Jiraiya is still so amiable. When he saw Nangongja's appearance, he even had the time to tease Nangongja a little. Nangongja also touched his face and said to Jiraiya with a smile on his face, "Don't worry. Originally, there were too many things pressing on me, so most of the time, I had a heavy face and was difficult to get close to. In the past few years, I pushed away all the work that I could push away. It's very comfortable to stay at home, read books, and cook. When there's no pressure in my heart, whether it's my face or other places, it's a little rounder." Looking at Nangongja's face and listening to Nangongja's words, Jiraiya didn't know why, but there was a faint feeling of envy in his heart. Isn't Nangongja's plain daily life what I want the most? But in the past few years, for the 3 generations, for Watergate, for Naruto, for Woodleaf, Jiraiya didn't seem to have a stable life. Instead, he was always running around, and the old look on his face became more and more obvious. Chapter 370. Your Life. Looking at Nangongja, Jiraiya was actually a little envious at the moment, because such a peaceful life really made him very fascinated. Anyway, I'm really happy to see you no longer have the original unapproachable appearance, but slowly have a mortal side. Yes, in Jiraiya's view, whether it was himself, Watergate, or Nangongja 3 years ago, they have actually broken away from the level of immortal. Because in their lives, there is no such thing as the most basic life. Every day is deceit, and every moment is a life and death battle. Such a life is not what a normal human being should have, and humans who have such a situation are naturally not normal mortals. On the contrary, the current Nangongzhi has an indescribable gentleness on his face all the time. Whether it is the breath on his body or the soft contour of his face, it makes people feel very comfortable. If Jiraiya had to find someone to compare with Nangongzhi, perhaps only Naruto, who has followed him for 3 years and whose strength has increased a lot, but has always retained the heart of a child, can have such qualifications, right? Even Watergate didn't have such a state. Naruto is like the sun hanging high in the sky, hot and intense, releasing his light and heat for everyone without reservation, making the ice in everyone's heart begin to dissipate under such sunshine. On the other hand, Nangongzhi was more like a stove used at home. It wasn't blazing hot, but it constantly emitted a warm aura. This kind of warmth was so quiet and refreshing, making everyone feel incomparably comfortable. The appearance of a mortal. After listening to Jiraiya's words, Nangongzhi slowly reached out and touched his face, and said with amusement, "So becoming a mortal is just a little fat?" "Then Jiraiya-sama, you are also a standard mortal." Nangongzhi's words made Jiraiya laugh. "Isn't this a way to say that I'm fat? When did the original Nangongzhi make such a joke with me?" It can be seen that Nangongzhi has indeed changed a lot. "You suddenly joked with me, I really can't accept it so quickly for a while. You used to be cold, but now you take the initiative to make fun of me." No, the difference is too big, I need to calm down." Jiraiya didn't pick up Nangongzhi's words just now. Instead, he directly told Nangongzhi that he couldn't accept Nangongzhi's change. Nangongzhi naturally understood Jiraiya's meaning. He understood that Jiraiya and Naruto had just returned to Woodleaf Village and must have a lot of things to do, so he immediately said to Jiraiya very understandingly, "Ha ha ha. I know that Jiraiya-sama should have just returned to Woodleaf, and Naruto hasn't seen his father and mother for a long time. You are also going to find them, right? I won't bother you today, but you must come to my house when you have time. In the past few years, I have been practicing my cooking skills, and I will make your eyes light up." Although Nangongzhi didn't say her name, both of them knew that Jiraiya must want to see the woman he loved deeply. So Nangongzhi also gave Jiraiya a good excuse to end the conversation. Jiraiya cupped his hand and said to Nangongzhi, "I'll leave first. Then I'll take my leave first. I reckon that there will be a lot of trivial matters in the next 2 days. If I have time, I will definitely come to your house and have a good taste of your self-praising skills." As soon as his voice fell, Jiraiya jumped to the roof, obviously chasing after Naruto who had run away just now. Nangongzhi also slowly walked to the front of the stall of the auntie who was selling vegetables just now, reached out and took the vegetables he had just stored in the auntie's stall. He took out his wallet from the inner pocket of his coat, counted the money and handed it to the auntie to pay the bill. The auntie looked at Nangongzhi curiously while giving Nangongzhi the change. Finally, it seemed that she couldn't hold back her curiosity and said to Nangongzhi, "Is the person who just talked to you Jiraiya-sama?" Hearing the auntie's question, Nangongzhi was a little surprised. After all, although Jiraiya's name was famous, there were not many people who could recognize his face. The last time Jiraiya appeared in Woodleaf was 3 years ago. It was amazing that the auntie could recognize Jiraiya. "It's indeed Jiraiya-sama. How did you recognize him?" "Jiraiya-sama hasn't appeared in public for nearly 3 years." Hearing Nangongzhi's doubts, the auntie seemed to be excited for a while. She said to Nangongzhi with a red face, "I'm actually about the same age as Jiraiya-sama. Back then, Jiraiya-sama's house was not far from my house. We used to see each other all the time. No one would have thought that the little rascal who liked to peep at the women's bathhouse has now become a famous sannin. Even Hokage-sama is Jiraiya's apprentice." Speaking of which, after the water sect came to power, there were quite a few people who dug up some things about the water sect. Watergate himself also wanted to use Jiraiya's reputation to cover up the fact that he was an orphan, so it could be regarded as promoting the more glorious side of Jiraiya. Although Nangongja knew that even the current Jiraiya was actually just a little rascal who peeped at the women's bathhouse, but now he not only peeped at the women's bathhouse but also wrote a small book, but these words couldn't be said casually. After casually dealing with the auntie for a while, Nangongja carried some vegetables and walked in the direction of his home. You know, during this time, Nangongja has basically taken over the responsibility of cooking at home. Even Mashiro is now only helping Nangongja when cooking. Today, because he met Jiraiya and chatted a few more words, now he actually came home 20 minutes later than usual. She still didn't know how hungry the girls in her family were. Thinking of this, Nangongja couldn't help but speed up his pace. There was no afterimage, no smoke, but Nangongja moved forward on the road at a very fast speed. Step by step, seemingly ordinary steps, he moved far more than the length of a step. Did Nangongja really waste 3 years like this? Chapter 371. Brother Nangong. You're finally back. Why didn't you come home for so long? As soon as he opened the door, little Linger stood in front of Nangongja angrily. She had a look of strong condemnation written on her face, and she lost her temper at Nangongja. Speaking of which, little Linger was not young anymore, but in front of Nangongja, she still looked like a child. Although little Linger complained, Nangongja was not annoyed. He smiled and touched little Linger's head, and said to little Linger, "It's my fault. When I was shopping today, I saw Naruto and Jiraiya returning to the village, so I chatted with Jiraiya for a while. I didn't expect time to pass so fast, and I was late to cook. It's okay, brother will cook for you now, okay?" Little Linger was not an unreasonable person. When she heard Nangongja say that Naruto was back, little Linger suddenly remembered the child who had been following her behind in the past. Naruto Komatsu is back. This guy has been gone for 3 years, I don't know what he is like now. Although little Linger was still muttering, Nangongja didn't mind at all. He just changed his coat and shoes, and ran into the kitchen with the ingredients he just bought. Mashiro saw Nangongja coming over, and he reached out and took the bag in Nangongja's hand. He took out the ingredients one by one, put them in his refrigerator, and then said to Nangongja, "Jiraiya-sama is back?" It seems something happened. These few days the report of Blood-Clothed Pavilion also stated that recently the personnel of Akatsuki organization have been mobilized very frequently, and many ninjas belonging to Akatsuki organization have already entered the scope of Wind Country in disguise. They aren't eyeing. Over the years, a lot of important information from Bloodcloth Pavilion was passed through Mashiro's hands before being transferred to Nangongja, so Akatsuki was clear about the Biju's desire. Originally, he thought that Akatsuki would first target some people who didn't belong to a big ninja village or didn't have a high status like Column Force, but now Akatsuki's power has slowly penetrated into the Wind Country. Ichibi Shikaku. Nangongja knew what Mashiro meant, and he couldn't help muttering to himself. Gaara, as Ichibi Shikaku, Column Force, he had already ascended to the throne of the Kazekages. With his own ability and the support from his father, Gaara could be said to be sitting firmly in the Kazekage's position at this moment. It was indeed very surprising that Akatsuki dared to attack Gaara. But thinking about it carefully, it also made some sense. First of all, among the 5 major countries, the Wind Country was indeed a weak country. The barren land and harsh environment doomed such a country to be very weak. Second, although the strength of a Biju didn't depend entirely on the number of tails, the Ichibi was indeed not strong among the 9 Biju. It was normal to solve the problem like this. Third, and the most important point, in fact, in Gaara's heart, he was very repulsed by Ichibi Shikaku in his body, so there was no way for him to fully communicate with Ichibi. Although Gaara's strength was not bad, he was far from reaching the real Kage level, so now was a good time to attack Gaara. These things will naturally be dealt with by the people who should have a headache. Nangongja thought for a while, but he didn't have any plans to help Sunagakure get through this difficult time. Woodleaf and Sunagakure have signed an offensive and defensive alliance after the Chunin exam 3 years ago. To a certain extent, Sunagakure has become half a vassal of Woodleaf. In order to protect the image of Woodleaf, Watergate will never sit back and watch Sunagakure suffer such a heavy blow. Although Woodleaf can't be said to have completely suppressed the ninja world, the effect of the medical ninja training program and the combat ninja training program in recent years is extremely significant. After so many years of sharpening their fangs, it's time to show their edge, isn't it? Mashiro was also a person with great political insight. When he heard Nangong's words, he also understood the cause and effect of it, and the original worry in his eyes disappeared. He was the person who assisted Nangongja, and all the decisions were actually made by Nangongja in the end. As long as Nangongja didn't miss any important things, he naturally didn't have to say anything. After Nangongja understood all these things, he also focused on what to eat for breakfast at home. It's just that Japanese breakfast is actually very simple, mostly some rice, miso soup, tofu, fish, and so on. But after all, there are more girls in the family, and such a light breakfast is really not popular, so Nangongja gradually learned to make some breakfast with some Western characteristics to enrich the table. Looking at Mashiro, Nangongja tentatively asked, "How about, we eat blueberry cream fruit muffins this morning?" Hearing the rather long name, Mashiro's eyes couldn't help but shine. It seems that at this moment, the refreshing sour taste of the blueberry, the delicate and soft sweetness of the cream, and the soft texture of the muffins have automatically emerged in his mind. Sure enough. Never talk about desserts with girls. Otherwise, they definitely won't let it go. While Nangong's family was struggling with the problem of breakfast, at this moment in the Hokage's office, Watergate was looking at the child who has been away from him for 3 years, Uzumaki Naruto. The strong feeling from the bone marrow, from the depths of the blood, was washing Watergate's brain over and over again, and he opened his mouth again and again, but again and again he was speechless. At the best, Watergate slowly walked to Naruto's side, looking at Naruto who was almost the same height as him. He could only slowly say, "You've grown up." After saying such a dry word, for a while, Watergate, who was very talkative, couldn't say anything more at this moment. Jiraiya, who was standing next to the two, saw the strange atmosphere between the father and son, and said, well, if there is anything you want to talk about between father and son, put it at home for the time being. I came back this time not only because of Naruto's success in training, so I came back to the village. The more important reason is that I found out through various channels that the Akatsuki is going to make a big move recently. I was worried that they might make a move on Woodleaf, so I hurried back to remind you, Watergate. Chapter 372. With Jiraiya's help, the awkward atmosphere between Watergate and Naruto finally dissipated a little. Maybe all men are so clumsy. When it came to their true feelings, everyone's IQ and EQ plummeted, causing the situation to become extremely tense. Hearing Jiraiya's words, Watergate also sat back in his chair. In an instant, the charisma of a leader burst out directly from Watergate's body, in sharp contrast to the previous somewhat dull father image. Since Sensei has something to say. Glancing at Naruto standing next to Jiraiya, Watergate continued, "Naruto, you go home first, Shina Kushina is waiting for you at home. I still have something to discuss with Sensei." As expected by Naruto, when Watergate encountered such a matter involving Woodleaf and the ninja world, Watergate would definitely stick to the bottom line and not let Naruto, who was only a genin, participate in it. "Then I'll go first." After slightly saluting his father and Jiraiya, Naruto also left Hokage's office. Looking at Naruto's leaving figure, Jiraiya said to Watergate with some bitterness, You usually look so smart, but how come you are even more dull than Sensei when it comes to Naruto's problem? Over the past few years, I have been with Naruto day and night, and I can be regarded as someone who understands Naruto's mind more. If you always have such an attitude, even if Naruto wants to reconcile with you, he may not be able to do it. Watergate heard Jiraiya's complaint, but he didn't seem to have any emotional fluctuations. He still said with a flat face, "Let's talk about this another day. After all, Naruto and I are father and son. There will always be a chance to explain these misunderstandings. Now, the most important thing is the movement of Akatsuki and the ninja world. I can't let wood leaf decline in my hands." Jiraiya glanced at Watergate, who was sitting on a large chair, and muttered to himself, as expected, "Both the father and the son are a pair of idiots." Watergate raised his eyebrows slightly. Although Jiraiya's voice was very low, Watergate could still hear it with his hearing. Perhaps Jiraiya was muttering so that Watergate could hear him. We didn't know all this, but after this little complaint, Jiraiya told Watergate some information about Akatsuki that he just mentioned. "Mom. I'm back." Naruto took out the key that he hadn't used for several years from his pocket and opened the door of his house. He habitually shouted towards the house. It was okay that he didn't shout. As soon as he shouted, there was a burst of sound of pots and pans in the house. Obviously, Shina Kushina heard Naruto's voice, and she was in a hurry. After a while, Shina Kushina, wearing an apron and holding a pan in her hand, ran out of the house. Her white face was stained with a little black stain, and there was a faint smell of cooking oil. It looked like she was cooking. Naruto looked at his mother coming out, and his face showed a bright smile. It was completely different from the dull expression he had when he saw Watergate just now. Slowly opening his hands, Naruto was ready to hug his mother. However, watching Shina Kushina's figure rushing towards him faster and faster, Naruto had a bad feeling in his heart. In particular, Shina Kushina's face was getting clearer and clearer in Naruto's eyes, and the blue veins on her forehead were so obvious. "You bastard!" She raised the pan in her hand high, and the black bottom of the pan even appeared a little blurred under the effect of speed and strength. Bang! Naruto was directly hit in the cheek by the pan, and his whole body flew up and smashed into the wall. Immediately, the originally smooth wall had been printed with the faint figure of Naruto. But if you look carefully, you will find that there is another mark on the wall that Naruto hit that is not so similar to Naruto's figure. Let's give the best blessing to Watergate and Naruto and live on. You clearly said that you will write to me every week and send me at least one photo every month. But, look at it yourself. Shina Kushina took out a large box from nowhere, and after opening the lid of the box, letters and photos leaked out. Looking at these letters and photos, Shina Kushina, who originally looked aggressive, immediately looked like a different person at the moment, looking extremely weak. You sent me 16 letters and 5 photos less. Do you know how worried your mother was when she didn't receive your letter? Although Jiraiya-sensei is very powerful, he is careless. If I accidentally hurt you, even, what should I do? As she spoke, a few tears came out from the corner of Shina Kushina's eyes. Naruto is a slightly dull person, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't understand his mother's love for him. Naruto actually remembers these 16 letters and 5 photos, but Naruto still didn't send them. Shina Kushina's guess is right. He did not send these letters because of injuries and other reasons, but how can he say it directly? Mom, it's my fault. I really forgot those few times. Although Horny Sage is a pervert, he is still very powerful. I have learned a lot from him in the past few years. Don't blame him. Naruto buckled himself down from the wall and slowly walked to his mother to comfort her. Shina Kushina finally broke free from the sad mood and looked up at her child carefully. Although she could see the photos, it was not as real as what she saw with her own eyes. My child. Shina Kushina slowly stood up straight and compared herself with her child, and found that she was no longer as tall as Naruto. The child who originally lived with her with a snot hanging from his nose has now become a heroic and vigorous young man. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Mom made a lot of food for you, all of which are your favorite. Let's go eat, and then you can tell me about your experience in the past few years, okay? Hearing Shina Kushina say that she made food, Naruto's face, which was originally black because of the attack from the bottom of the pot, became darker at this moment. Chapter 373. As for Shina Kushina's cooking, well, let's not comment too much. Otherwise, the frying pan that made Naruto and Watergate suffer so much will fall on our heads. All we need to know is that 3 days after Naruto and Shina Kushina had a meal together, Naruto lost 5 kilograms. Naruto, who had just returned to Woodleaf, naturally had to visit his friends whom he hadn't seen for a long time. So the days flew by just like that. Naruto naturally didn't forget Nangongja, who had always taken care of him since he was a child. At this moment, Naruto was standing in front of Nangong's house with the gift his mother prepared. Because it wasn't convenient for him to knock on the door with both hands, Naruto clamped the gift he was holding in his right hand under his left arm. He extended his hand and gently knocked on the beautiful red wooden door of the Nangong family. Soon, a response was heard from the courtyard. The door creaked open, and Naruto was able to see Uncle Nangong, whom he hadn't seen for several years. Even though Shina Kushina repeatedly told Naruto that Nangongja had changed a lot in the past few years, Naruto was still so shocked that the gift in his hand fell to the ground. Fortunately, Shina Kushina was careful when she prepared the gift and didn't put anything fragile in it. Otherwise, so many gifts would have been wasted. Naruto came around 11 o'clock, and it was almost lunchtime. Naruto probably chose this time to avoid being baptized by his mother's delicious food. Since he was a child, Naruto liked to eat at Nangong's house. After all, Mashiro's cooking was really good. Nangongja had begun to take on the responsibility of cooking for his family in the past few years, so at this moment, Nangongja was wearing an apron and holding a big spoon in his hand to open the door for Naruto. Nangongja's somewhat round face and gentle temperament reminded Naruto of the cafeteria uncle when he was in ninja school. Nangong. Uncle Nangong. Looking at Nangongja's current appearance, Naruto stuttered, although I have always called you uncle, you have always been super handsome in my heart. That cool temperament and handsome face, how did you really become an uncle now? Naruto's relationship with Nangongja was very good, so he could make some harmless jokes. Nangongja was naturally aware of the changes he had undergone in the past few years. Being teased by Naruto, whom he had watched grow up, Nangongja also smiled and stretched out a hand to flick Naruto's forehead. Even you are teasing me like this? You came at the right time. Today, I suddenly wanted to make ramen. It seems that even God wants me to invite you to eat at my house. Nangongja was naturally very clear about Naruto's love for ramen. Today, he really suddenly wanted to make ramen, and then Naruto came over. It was an inexplicable fate, right? Ramen. When he heard about ramen, Naruto had already become excited. Let me tell you, Uncle Nangong, I have eaten a lot of famous ramen in the ninja world with lascivious sage in the past few years. But I still think that Raku family's ramen is the best. The ramen made by Uncle Baku is simply amazing. I don't know what Uncle Nangong's ramen will look like. Hearing Naruto's words, Naruto seemed to be questioning his cooking skills. For a moment, Nangongja didn't know where some unknown fire came from. He said to Naruto, "Then I will make it for you to see. I won't eat your tongue in my stomach. Ahaha. Then I will wait and see what kind of ramen uncle can make." Naruto said to Nangongja with a happy smile. The two also ended the conversation and walked into Nangong's house together. Today, Little Linger and Nangong Ro went out to do something. Only Mashiro and Nangongja were at home, but Nangongja prepared a lot of ingredients. Obviously, it was prepared for Little Linger and Nangong Ro who would come back from playing. Seeing Naruto at home, Mashiro also said to Naruto very gently, "I heard from Miyagi that you came back, but I didn't see you at home. It seems that the smell of ramen today attracted you here?" Facing Mashiro's teasing, Naruto didn't act as unrestrained as when he was talking to Nangongja at the door. Instead, he said to Mashiro shyly, "Mashiro-san, don't laugh at me. These days, Kakashi-sensei asked me to check my progress, Sakura-sen asked me to tell her about my experience in the ninja world, and even Shikamaru and Choji pestered me to treat them. After a few days, it finally calmed down, so I quickly came to see you." When Naruto spoke, his nervous and serious attitude directly made Mashiro laugh. She walked to Naruto's side and said to Naruto with a slightly reproachful tone, "You child, big sister is just joking with you, why are you so serious? I know that you will be busy after coming back. Your uncle Nangong and I have been at home all the time, and we are not in a hurry for you to come to see us. As long as you can come, it is already very good." Shina Kushina was born with a bad temper. Although her love for Naruto was unquestionable, she was also a little violent. But Mashiro was different, she was a woman as gentle as water. Every time Naruto came to Nangongja's house, Mashiro would be so gentle, which made Naruto's heart faintly have the idea of putting Mashiro in the same position as his mother, so when facing Mashiro, Naruto always couldn't help but relax. "Mashiro, you and Naruto go to the living room and chat first. We haven't seen each other for so long, I think Naruto has a lot to say to you. The porcupine bone soup for our ramen is almost cooked to perfection, I can also prepare the other ingredients myself, go and have a good chat with Naruto." Nangongja naturally saw that Mashiro was very happy that Naruto could come, so he said to Mashiro in a timely manner. After so many years, Nangongja and Mashiro no longer had the polite modesty between them. Since Nangongja said that he could handle it, Mashiro was very happy and pulled Naruto to the living room to chat. Seeing the two of them chatting so happily, Nangongja's mood was also a lot better. He turned around and began to prepare the various ingredients that were going to be used, preparing to make delicious ramen for his family and Naruto. Chapter 374. In fact, Japanese ramen has a disguised feeling of fast food, because whether it's the side dishes or the soup, they can all be prepared in advance. When it's time to make ramen, all you need to do is boil the ramen in boiling water, then pour it into a bowl, pour the soup over it, and add the side dishes, and the bowl of ramen is complete. Nangongja's ramen at noon today is the very famous Bodo ramen, which is a kind of ramen famous for its rich soup and slender noodles. In order to make the ramen look more appetizing, Nangongja also prepared crinoline, bean sprouts, green onions, fish cakes, dried bamboo shoots, and thick spiral-shaped barbecued pork rolls. Putting the ramen filled with white soup, slender noodles, and rich side dishes on a tray, Nangongja brought such a well-made ramen to the living room. Naruto was still chatting with Mashiro, talking about his experiences in the shinobi world, and he looked very happy. But when Nangongja walked into the living room with the ramen, Naruto's words came to an abrupt end. Turning his head stiffly, Naruto's eyes were filled with a fanatical look at the moment. You know, even if the taste of the ramen wasn't that good, Naruto still regards the 3 minutes as the most painful time for him. Not to mention a bowl of freshly made ramen that exudes a tempting aroma. Seeing Naruto's eagerness, Mashiro also moved aside a little, letting Nangongja directly put the bowl of ramen in front of Naruto. You know, under normal circumstances, if you want to eat, you have to eat at the dining table. But considering the degree of familiarity between him and Naruto, Mashiro also let Naruto sit in the living room and eat the ramen directly. How is it, uncle's technique is pretty good, right? I said I'll let you eat your tongue into your stomach, so I'll let you eat your tongue into your stomach. As he spoke, Nangongja's face was filled with pride, as if he had accomplished something amazing. At this moment, Naruto was as devout as a believer. With a different kind of seriousness in his eyes, he picked up the chopsticks that Nangongzetsu casually put on the tray. He clasped his hands together and clamped the chopsticks between his thumb and index finger. He gently touched his forehead with his fingertips and said softly, "I'm going to eat." Naruto, who directly began his battle to conquer the ramen, gently separated the side dishes and noodles with chopsticks, holding the bowl with both hands, his mouth close to the edge of the bowl, obviously ready to taste the soup base of the ramen. Looking at Naruto's serious and devout appearance while eating the ramen, Nangongja and Mashiro simply couldn't connect this Naruto at this time with his usual lively appearance. Looking at Naruto like this, Nangongja couldn't help but smile, and then he also prepared the ramen for himself and Mashiro for lunch. On the other side, although Naruto looked particularly devout when eating, his speed was still very fast, and the noises he made when eating noodles were very loud. The sound of slurping was endless, and Nangongja was very happy to see that Naruto could like his ramen so much. But the so-called happiness was always temporary, and he didn't know when troubles would befall him. Naruto put the last piece of roasted pork in his bowl between his chopsticks, and his nose slightly opened to smell the wonderful aroma of the roasted pork. Just as this delicious roasted pork was about to enter his mouth, a burst of cramped knocking on the door interrupted Naruto's pilgrimage eating journey. Although Nangongja didn't look as serious as Naruto when eating ramen, he still didn't like people interrupting his meal like this. Sitting next to him, Mashiro was about to get up and open the door. Nangongja stood up and walked towards the door by himself. Without asking who was standing outside the door, Nangongja directly opened the door of his house. And standing outside the door was an Umbun ninja who was wrapped up in a thick cloak. Respectfully bowing to Nangongja, the Umbun ninja said to Nangongja, "Sorry to disturb you." Hearing the Umbun ninja's words, Nangongja also slightly loosened his frown, but he still said to the Umbun ninja, "Since you already know that you are rude, then I hope you can give me a reason to forgive your rudeness. This time, I'm not conveying orders to Nangong-sama, but to Naruto who is in your house. Sorry, due to my duty, I can't tell you the details of the truth. After all, an Umbun ninja is an Umbun ninja, and he still has the basic quality. Regarding the confidential information that may be involved in his mission, the Umbun ninja will never leak the slightest bit." Nangongja looked at the Umbun ninja, and slowly moved his body away from the door, allowing the Umbun ninja to directly enter the yard. The Umbun ninja saw Naruto at a glance, and directly walked in the direction of Naruto, and slowly leaned over to Naruto's ear and whispered a few words. For a while, Naruto's face became rich, and the barbecued pork that attracted Naruto's attention no longer seemed important at this moment. Has this information been confirmed? As if to convince himself, Naruto asked the Umbun ninja. It's true, the information was directly passed from the elders of Sunagakure. Hokage-sama has decided to let you and other people form a team to temporarily go to the Sunagakure to observe, and the main force will be dispatched when it is unavoidable. The Umbun ninja lowered his voice and explained to Naruto. Naruto nodded, stood up and said to Nangongja, "Uncle Nangong, I'm sorry, I suddenly have an urgent matter, so I'll go first. But uncle, your ramen is really delicious, if possible, I'd like to swallow my tongue into my stomach." After a slight salute to Nangongja, Naruto and the Umbu jumped on the eaves and poles toward the Hokage's office. Sunagakure. Sure enough, it's not a cover-up. Nangongja actually heard the Umbu ninja's words very clearly, so combined with his own information, it's not difficult to know that the Akatsuki has already started to attack the Sunagakure. A ferocious tiger that had been dormant for so many years had finally bared its fangs. Don't know how many people, under the gaze of this tiger, will be unable to protect themselves. Strengthen the monitoring of the Sunagakure and the Akatsuki. If there is any abnormality, immediately report to me. If necessary, I can also directly go to the Sunagakure to participate in the battle. Looking at Mashiro sitting next to him, Nangongja firmly issued an order, and Mashiro nodded and passed Nangongja's order to the other members of Bloodcloth Pavilion. Chapter 375. Naruto, this is all the information we already know. Looking at Naruto standing in front of him with a serious look, Watergate slowly put the information in his hand with the word, confidential, written on his table. We have confirmed the authenticity of this letter through various means, but counting the time on the road and various delays, it is now the second day since Gaara was kidnapped. We know that Akatsuki has a great desire for Bijou, so we can't guarantee Gaara's safety at this moment. However, this letter is only sent to us in the name of Sunagakure, not in the name of the Land of Wind. So we can't send a large number of ninjas into the territory of the Land of Wind so rashly, so this time we can only send a small number of ninjas into the territory of the Land of Wind. And our final decision is to send Naruto, Haruno Sakura, and Hatake Kakashi to carry out this mission. The current mission level is A level, but it can be upgraded to S level or even higher depending on the situation. Looking at Naruto, Watergate really felt that his child had grown up for a while. According to his previous personality, after hearing that he thought that Gaara's life might be in danger and that there was no way to send a large number of ninjas to increase the number of ninjas, it is estimated that he would immediately explode. But now, although there is still anger in his eyes, he can completely control himself. As the Jinchuriki of the irritable Kyuubi, being able to control his violent temperament to such a degree is already a very powerful thing. Watergate slowly walked to Naruto's side and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Gently rubbing twice, looking at his son who was almost as tall as himself, Watergate slowly put his mouth to Naruto's ear. I only know that you are angry, and I know that you can't wait to get rid of those ninjas of Akatsuki at this moment. But don't do it. Because you know the gap between you, and such a gap can't be made up for by a moment of courage. Remember your mission, you are a ninja for investigation, not a ninja for combat. No matter what, he had to protect himself and return safely. Mom and I will wait for you at home. We will wait for you to come back safe and sound. After hearing the first half of Watergate's words, Naruto became even angrier, because Naruto felt that Watergate didn't trust him. But later, Naruto found that it didn't seem to be what he thought. His father, who was called Hokage by everyone, was actually not that cold and ruthless. On the contrary, he seemed to have some faint concern for his son. Over the years, Naruto has traveled in the shinobi world and has seen all kinds of people and encountered all kinds of things. Gradually, he began to understand the emotional problems between people. Thinking back to the past few days when she was at home, Watergate was obviously very busy, but he still insisted on having dinner with his family at home. I know, I will come back safe and sound. Naruto's voice was slightly hoarse because of his emotional fluctuations, but it was obvious that the child had recovered his usual calmness at this moment. Sensei, in that case, we will go first. Kakashi looked at the interaction between the father and son, and for a moment, there was a little envy in his eyes. If his father was still alive, would he care about him like his sensei? Of course, these are meaningless assumptions. White Fang is already dead, isn't he? Hearing Kakashi's words, Watergate also restored his majestic image as the Hokage. Be careful, no matter what happens, Wood Leaf will be your strongest support. Miyagi, the latest information is here. In Nangongja's house, Mashiro was holding a leather bag and walking in front of Nangongja at this moment. Nangongja took it and checked the ink on it, then Nangongja gently opened the bag. Slowly taking the information in his hand and carefully observing the blurry photos, Nangongja's eyebrows slowly wrinkled a little bit. Akatsuki, actually have a way to quickly seal a bijou and transfer it? Well, if they don't have such ability, how could they dare to attack a bijou? Over the years, although Nangongja was clear about Akatsuki's desire for bijou, Nangongja always thought that Akatsuki's plan was to capture bijou column force and then take him to Amigakure or other hidden places to seal him. After all, sealing a bijou not only requires an extremely powerful sealing technique, but also the right time, the right place, and the right people, all of which are indispensable. But according to this information, at this moment, Akatsuki's ninja actually brought bijou column force, Gaara, to the country of Kawa, which is not that big. There is no possibility of sealing a bijou in such a place. Akatsuki naturally has its own method to quickly seal a bijou. If this is the case, Akatsuki is more dangerous than Nangongja thought. This time it seems that I have to go and see what is going on. If I can't figure out how Akatsuki seals a bijou, I really can't calm down. Looking at Mashiro standing beside him, Nangongja continued to say, "Help me prepare, I will leave for the country of Kawa immediately." Although Mashiro was reluctant to part with Nangongja's departure, he still had to get used to such a life after so many years. 3 years, this man used 3 years to smooth his edges and accompany his family, but at this moment, he once again needed to wear a robe and a sword. After bringing Nangongja's robe and Heaven's disaster sword to Nangongja, Nangongja stretched out his hand and gently stroked the dark pattern on his black robe, then grabbed the collar and shook it directly on his body. He kneeled on one knee, slightly bowed his body, and lifted his Heaven's disaster sword. After 3 years, the Yama wearing a black robe and carrying a black ancient sword finally returned again. "You're so white. I've really enjoyed the life I've been living for the past few years. Every day, I am busy with the trivial affairs of the family. Although it is complicated, I am also very happy. Just wait, as long as these things are over, our family will continue to live like this." Although his disguise was still that murderous Yama, the tenderness in Nangongja's eyes at this moment was no different from when he was buying vegetables and cooking in these years. "I believe in you. No matter when, no matter where." Looking at Nangongja, Mashiro said. Chapter 376. In a secret cave in the country of Kawano, all the members of Akatsuki were present. The 10 fingers of Gedo Mazo were also full of people except for the left little finger. But except for Deidara and Sasori, the others were summoned by the secret ninjutsu of Akatsuki. Just before Sasori and Deidara kidnapped Gaara, the other 8 core members of Akatsuki had already arrived here. The sealing technique used to seal the tailed beast was naturally not so easy to perform. Akatsuki's sealing technique used the power of Gedo Mazo. Under the guidance of the chakra of Akatsuki's members, the tailed beast was stripped and sealed in the body of Gedo Mazo. At this moment, Gaara was being held in midair by an invisible force, and the 9 official members of Akatsuki continued to inject chakra into Gedo Mazo. The 9 eyes of Gedo Mazo that were originally closed were half opened at this moment, and the mouth that was originally closed was now slowly opening. Now, as the main caster, Pain was naturally the one who could sense the state of the Gedo Golem the best. So at this moment, Pain suddenly made a lot of hand gestures with his fingers. There were even many unconventional hand gestures among them. Then he shouted, "Sealing technique, illusory dragon 9 seals." The other members standing on the fingers of Gedo Mazo looked pale at this moment, because the chakra in their bodies was being sucked out by Gedo Mazo at a siphon speed. The huge loss of chakra is not something that anyone can bear. And the effect of this huge amount of chakra was naturally very outstanding. The mouth of the Gedo Mazo, which was originally slowly opening, was now completely opened. It even made people feel that the Gedo Mazo was roaring at the top of its lungs due to the hunger in its stomach. 9 dragon-shaped chakra streams condensed from chakra gushed out from Gedo Mazo's mouth at this moment. The dragon-shaped chakra was like a real dragon at this moment, dancing in the air. Pain stared at Gaara, who was floating in the air. This was the first tailed beast that the Akatsuki had officially captured. Failure was not allowed. Controlling the 9 chakra to move slowly in the direction of Gaara, the 9 chakra that originally seemed to have no target were now like sharks that smelled blood. They automatically rushed in the direction of Gaara without Pain's guidance. 9 dragon-shaped chakra hovered in the air, gradually forming a spherical chakra ball that enveloped Gaara. However, the 9 dragon-shaped chakra figures were still clearly visible. As they continued to move, Gaara's face began to turn hideous and painful. Because the Ichibi Shikaku sealed in Gaara's body was connected to Gaara's life. Every bit of power extracted from the Ichibi Shikaku was the same as extracting Gaara's vitality. Gradually, the sphere formed by the 9 dragon-shaped chakra has changed from the original azure blue color to a slightly pale yellow color that looked a bit jumbled. Pain also looked at this chakra ball with satisfaction, and once again controlled the 9 chakra from the Geto-Mazo to return to the Geto-Mazo. Looking at the other 9 members of the Akatsuki, Pain said, "Today is just the beginning. The 9-tailed beasts will definitely be in our pocket, and we will bring eternal peace to the ninja world. After the other members have a good rest, you should speed up your task. As for Sasori and Deidara, you are, after all, outside our sphere of influence, and now you have consumed too much chakra because of using the ninjutsu of the Genryu 9 seals. So, I hope you can keep a low profile and leave the country of River and return to our sphere of influence as soon as possible." With that said, Pain glanced at Deidara's empty left arm without a trace. Deidara's ability mainly comes from the various applications of his own explosive clay. Usually, the explosive clay is mostly swallowed by the strange mouth of Deidara's hands. Deidara is now missing an arm, and his combat power has really decreased a lot. Pain was thinking about how to deal with Deidara at this moment. It's really hard to choose whether to get rid of him directly or let him continue to use his remaining power. Deidara seemed to be aware of Pain's gaze, and his eyes were full of resentment and madness. Who would want to be a person without an arm? But all of this was caused by his carelessness when fighting with Gaara. His arm was directly crushed into a pool of mud, and there was no possibility of repair. "Damn it," Deidara murmured softly. No one knew who he was venting his anger at. Sasori, who was standing next to Deidara, took a deep look at Deidara at this moment. Although Deidara was usually crazy, it was the first time he was full of resentment like this. Sasori's somewhat stupefied eyes slowly turned a few times. No one knew what he was thinking about, and he had already retracted his gaze. After hearing Pain's order, the projections of several other official members of the Akatsuki organization also disappeared one by one. The originally huge Geto-Mazo also disappeared with a huge cloud of smoke at this moment. The originally huge cave had now become spacious and empty. Sasori and Deidara looked at each other and nodded to each other. Apparently, they were ready to leave this cave and return to the Rain Country as soon as possible to recuperate for a period of time. But man proposes, God disposes. Just as the two of them were about to move, Scorpion stopped Deidara. "Our barrier has been tampered with." Previously, in order to ensure the smooth progress of the seal, Sasori and Deidara set up a protective barrier on the periphery of this cave. Although it had no attack power, its defensive ability was extremely strong. When several talismans as the eye of the array were touched, Sasori, who was the one who set up the barrier, naturally sensed it. Just in time, this uncle was worried about having nowhere to vent. "Let them see this uncle's art." Deidara shouted with a trace of excitement, but he couldn't hide the panic from the bottom of his heart. After all, he had just suffered a heavy blow, and the chakra in his body was also greatly consumed. At this moment, could Deidara really display his full strength? "You go first, I'll bring up the rear," Sasori said very coldly to Deidara. "What do you mean?" After hearing his partner's words, Deidara's complexion changed. "You know what I mean, now you are just a burden." Perhaps Sasori realized how hurtful his words were, or perhaps Sasori didn't realize it at all. But the effect of Sasori's words was indeed very outstanding. Although Deidara was indignant at this moment, he still used his remaining chakra and explosive clay to make a clay bird. He sat on it and flew out from a hidden vent at the top of the cave. Only a voice was still echoing in Sasori's ears, "I'm leaving, but you can't die easily, otherwise I will laugh at you for a long time." Chapter 377. Boom! After a deafening roar, the huge rock that was blocking the entrance of the cave turned into huge fragments and scattered in all directions. The fragments contained great power as they shot out in all directions. Many of the fragments also contained great power as they rushed toward Scorpion. Sasori was currently shrouded in Filihu, and out of confidence in Filihu's defense, he didn't avoid these splashing stones. Although Filihu's red robe had become tattered due to the rubble, he was completely unscathed. Filihu's huge, bloated, and ugly body was revealed just like that. At the place where the boulder was broken, there were 4 people standing at the moment. Kakashi, who was still covering half of his face, Sakura, who was now slim and full of vitality, Naruto, whose Bija chakra was slightly exposed due to the change in his inner emotions, and an old man wrapped in a thick robe with wrinkles on his face. In fact, it wasn't just these people. After Naruto's group left, Watergate didn't feel at ease, so he sent Might Guy's third squad, which is the ninja team of Hyuga, Neji, Tien, and Lee, to support Naruto's group. These 8 people also met at the entrance of the cave. In order to break the barrier on the boulder blocking the entrance, Guy, Lee, Neji, and Tien went to other places to break the barrier. But now, they seemed to be entangled by something strange and couldn't go back for a while. Looking at the strange appearance of Filihu in front of her, Chio took a few steps forward and said to Sasori, "My grandson. I haven't seen you for a long time, and you want to face your grandmother with this attitude?" After hearing Chio's words, Sasori's slightly hoarse and strange voice came from Filihu. "Grandma, you and I are both puppeteers, what's the point of saying such words? When I was in the village, Nyo opposed my pursuit of eternity, so I left the village and made my own puppets. This Filihu is one of my works, and as a puppeteer, it's ridiculous to give up on your own puppet and fight." Xiaofan was also very curious about the thing in front of her that had been transformed into various mechanisms, but it had a human aura. But now, after listening to the conversation between Chio and Sasori, it seemed that this strange thing seemed to be a taboo puppet. "Chio grandma, is this so-called Filihu a puppet or a human?" When Gaara was taken away, Kankuro tracked Sasori and Deidara alone, but he was completely suppressed by Sasori, causing him serious injuries, and he was infected with a poison that was difficult to cure in the village. After Sakura's group arrived at the Sunagakure, they immediately treated Kankuro and had a good relationship with Chio. Hearing Sakura's question, Chio grandma's eyes flashed with grief, and she said to Sakura, "This kind of puppet is both a puppet and a human. Because its main material is the human body, and even some special puppets need to be transformed from living people. Because it's too cruel, our village listed such technology as forbidden, and it's not allowed to be learned and studied." But my grandson, Sasori, was not satisfied with just puppets made of wood and steel, and secretly began to study human puppets. This is the reason why he left Sunagakure. Just when Sakura was still digesting Chio grandma's cruel way of making puppets, Naruto let out a howl full of anger and sadness. Gaara dash. The conversation between Chio grandma and Sakura was interrupted in an instant, and both of them followed Naruto's line of sight. At this moment, the sand armor that had been protecting Gaara's body was broken, and his closed eyes and unperceivable breath proved one thing: the bijou has been removed, and Gaara has lost his life. "Sasori, that's the Kazekage of Sunagakure. That's the place where you grew up, the current guardian." Chio grandma finally couldn't maintain a calm tone and said to Sasori with a bit of grief. "Guardian? If the guardian is at this level, it's better to change it early. Grandma, you're already so old, it's better not to participate in such actions. Isn't it better to retire in Sunagakure with your second grandpa?" Sasori looked at the angry Chio, but his expression was normal, and it seemed that there was a bit of ridicule in his tone for Gaara's lack of strength. "You bastard!" Chio didn't react, but Naruto became angry because Sasori insulted his friend. The calmness and restraint he showed in front of Watergate was completely overwhelmed by his inner anger at this moment. "Naruto! Naruto!" Seeing that Naruto had already rushed forward, Sakura and Kakashi both wanted to stop Naruto's reckless action, but Naruto, who has mobilized part of the Nine Tails chakra, at this moment, his speed skyrocketed, and he was about to reach Sasori. At this moment, a voice came from the sky. "Brother Sasori. I'm back to help you." Sasori used the long tail-like part of his back to attack Naruto quickly, temporarily forcing Naruto to retreat. His low voice seemed to have a different kind of anger as he said to the giant shadow flying in the sky, "You. Didn't I tell you to retreat temporarily, and I'll cover the rear?" The person who came back was naturally Deidara, who was just forced away by Sasori's attack, but at this moment, Deidara no longer had the obvious anger and resentment from before. Instead, he said to Sasori with a cheeky smile, "Brother Scorpion, I was scared by you just now. But on the way, I suddenly remembered that I couldn't just leave something here. Therefore, I came back to get it. I didn't do it to save you," Zhang Tai said with a smile. Deidara's address of brother made Sasori's originally wooden expression slightly loosen a little. "If you forgot something, take it and get out of here. I want to have a good chat with my grandmother. You're an outsider, so don't stay here." Sasori looked at Chio standing opposite him and said to Deidara. Chapter 378. Although Sakura was young and didn't have any in-depth research on the history of Sunigakure, so she didn't know the meaning of the name, Sasori of the Red Sand, for Sunigakure, but Sakura understood that Akatsuki was an organization full of Itachi Uchiha who slaughtered her entire family, and its members were definitely not good people. "Grandma Chio. What should we do?" With a bit of inquiry, Sakura asked Chio, who was also a veteran puppeteer. Sasori himself is a genius in puppeteering. After leaving Sunigakure these years, he is absolutely obsessed with the study of puppets. Although puppets are very inhumane, they are indeed superior to ordinary puppets, so I dare not say that there is a 100% way to defeat my grandson. I can only try my best. Chio put her hand into her loose robe, then waved her skinny palm, and a kunai suspended in front of her. Each kunai was connected to chakra wire and controlled by Chio. It seemed to be a tentative attack. Chio shot all the kunai suspended in front of her towards Sasori. The tail that just forced Naruto to retreat directly shot down the kunai flying toward him. Sasori seemed very dissatisfied and said to Chio, "Grandma, do you still need to test me like this between you and me? It's better to directly take out those puppets that you are proud of, and let's have a good competition of puppeteering techniques." 298 puppets. Including the two of you, I have a total of 300 puppets. Sasori's tone was very dull, but there was a bloody smell. 298 puppets made from human bodies. This was only the number of successful puppets. Who knows how many people became defective and were discarded. Looking at Chio and Sakura standing opposite him, who seemed to be discussing how to deal with him, Sasori was quite impatient and said to the two women opposite him, "You two, almost finished your discussion, right? I hate waiting for people." Sakura and Chio looked at each other, nodded to each other and rushed side by side towards Sasori. Seeing that the two of them didn't use any long-range attacks and instead rushed toward him, Sasori made a prompt decision. He activated the mechanism in his Filiu's mouth. Poisonous needles wrapped in green light flew toward Chio and Sakura. Although Chio was old, her combat experience was extremely rich. She didn't make any big movements. She tilted her body, jumped up slightly, and squatted down. The dense poison needles that were flying towards her were actually dodged by Chio. On the other side, Sakura used her hands to support herself on the ground and rolled a few times to avoid all the poisonous needles. Looking at Chio and Sakura, Sasori also adjusted his attitude. On the other hand, Sakura relied on her physique to quickly close in on Feiliohu. Feiliohu was a puppet that Sasori used to defend his body. Naturally, it wasn't limited to long-range attacks. Therefore, the sharp blade on its back that resembled a tail moved at this moment. But the moment it moved, Sasori realized that something was amiss. The tail that was about to strike Sakura's face with extreme speed actually stopped in midair. The sharp blade was only a hair's breadth away from Sakura, but it couldn't advance any further. Cherry Blossom Rush. Sakura silently mustered her monster strength. She exerted force from her feet to her entire body. Small pieces of gravel wrapped in the dust were as beautiful as the withered cherry blossom petals in spring. However, such beauty was also accompanied by great danger. Monstrous strength was never a simple thing. Xiaofan took advantage of the momentary pause. Her black-gloved fist landed heavily on Fei Liuhu's body, smashing him into the ground and creating a huge cloud of dust. A figure rushed out of the dust at an extremely fast speed. Needless to say, it must be Sasori who was hiding in Fei Liuhu. Sasori, you're finally willing to. Chio looked at Sasori who rushed out of the dust. She was about to speak, but she stopped. His eyes, which were originally a little cloudy and half-closed, were now wide open, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing in front of him. Xiaofan was also slightly relieved from the sudden increase in speed and strength. She followed Chio's line of sight and looked at the scorpion of the crimson sand that had been hiding in the filiu. His wine-red hair and slightly lazy demeanor were so pleasing to the eye. However, no matter how one looked at him, he looked like he was in his teens or 20s. He didn't look like the 30-year-old uncle that Chio had mentioned. Just as he was about to ask Chio if this person was really Scorpio of the red sand, Chio's face slowly became gloomy. You actually transformed yourself into a puppet? Sakura was surprised when she heard Chio's words. She carefully observed Sasori who was standing near her. She found that although Sasori's robe was exactly the same as a normal person, she couldn't see the rise and fall of his chest when he breathed. Did he really transform himself into a puppet? Humans are simply too fragile of a life form. Whether their internal organs are damaged or a large amount of blood loss, human beings will lose their lives. Not to mention that there are diseases and aging, which are difficult to resist death. So, I began to study other people. I hope that I can make people's lives continue. My experiment, my research, I finally succeeded. I am the first person in this world who is both a human and a puppet. There is no disease, no aging, I can continue my life. This is, how wonderful. With that, Sasori's eyes were filled with a different kind of fanaticism. Having lost his parents, Scorpio's hatred for the fragile life of human beings and his yearning for eternity drove him to complete such a crazy and incomparably genius research. Grandma, as long as you are willing, I can make you live forever like me. From now on, you and I can always be together like this. After expressing his pursuit of eternity, Sasori began to ask Chio if she was willing to live. Perhaps in Sasori's view, Chio was almost at the end of her life. With a chance to live in front of her, how could she give up? Humans were creatures that cherished their lives the most. Chapter 379. Big Brother is still as cold as ever. Looking at Sasori, who was obviously less indifferent than usual, Deidara still said that Sasori was too cold. He didn't know why, but he felt a sense of incongruity. Don't worry, Big Brother. I will take the things and leave. Maybe it will be good for you and Grandma to have a good chat. With that, a smile appeared on Deidara's face. The huge clay bird he was sitting on changed from a hovering posture in the sky to a diving posture in an instant. Like an eagle preying on a hare, the clay bird also rushed to the side of Gaara, who was lying on the ground with wounds all over his body, and grabbed Gaara with its claws. Big Brother, how is it? Now you can talk to Grandma better, right? Looking at Sasori standing on the ground, Deidara laughed proudly. Although the strength of Naruto and Sakura is not so widely known, Kakashi from Woodleaf and Chio Momo, the consultant of Sand Ninja's elder group, are both well-known figures. No matter how strong a person is, as long as they don't reach a certain limit, they will eventually be suppressed by numbers. Deidara wanted to take Gaara's body at the moment to attract some of the power to increase Sasori's chances of survival. Sasori, Chio Momo, and Kakashi understood such a small idea. Even Sakura and Naruto vaguely felt that they had grasped something. In fact, the best plan now is for the four of them to go together and directly surround Sasori. The most effective way is to concentrate their strength and defeat him one by one. After all, although Gaara is very important, he is just a corpse. It is difficult to get it back, but it is not so troublesome to destroy it. But no matter who it is, they can't choose to do this, because Gaara is not just an ordinary ninja, but also the Kazekage of the Sand Village in the Land of Wind. The body of a person with such identity and status cannot be tarnished like this. What's more, among Woodleaf's group, Naruto and Sakura also have some friendship with Gaara. Even Naruto has a feeling of appreciation for Gaara. How can he tolerate someone not leaving Gaara's body intact? As for Chiyo Momo, as the consultant of Sand Village's elder group, she naturally has to maintain the dignity of Sand Village's Kazekage. And from Chiyo's point of view, it was her own fault for forcing Raza to turn Gaara into a Jinchuriki, which directly led to Gaara's sad life. Although Gaara had already gotten over it, the older Chiyo got, the more she blamed herself. "You bastard, leave Gaara." Among them, Naruto couldn't hold it in the sky. Naruto's. At this moment, Naruto shouted at Deidara in the sky, expressing the uncontrollable indignation in his chest. What can best reflect Naruto's mood is naturally the violent aura slowly released from Naruto's body, his eyes getting redder and redder, and his canine teeth getting sharper and sharper. So that's how it is. Woodleaf also sent their man Column Force over? It's really interesting. After catching a Column Force, they can also catch another Column Force. Find a way to get this Column Force in their hands, right? Looking at Naruto, who was wantonly venting his inner anger below, Deidara slowly rubbed his own ring on his index finger with his remaining left thumb, and inputted his chakra into it with some frequency, as if he was sending some information. "Hey, the kid with the long beard below, you want this guy's body?" With that, Deidara also pointed to Gaara, who was caught by the clay bird under his feet. Such frivolous behavior made Naruto even angrier. He shouted at Deidara in the sky, "You bastard, don't always talk nonsense in the sky. If you have the ability, come down and let Master Naruto teach you how to be a good person." Under normal circumstances, it was Deidara who called himself Master to ridicule others. Today, it was Deidara who was ridiculed by Naruto. He also felt a different kind of interest for a while. "Boy, do you think I'm afraid of you?" Deidara seemed to be interested. He slightly lowered the height of his clay bird, but he still kept a safe distance and said to Naruto below him, "If you want this guy's body, fight with me in another place. This is the battlefield left for my elder brother and his grandmother. Let's go then." "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Kakashi just wanted to stop Naruto and Deidara from continuing to talk, because Kakashi had clearly felt that chakra on Naruto was slowly becoming irritable. It was very likely that the Nine Tails chakra had affected Naruto's thinking. At this moment, Naruto was no longer rational and extremely irritable. But Naruto chased directly in the direction of Deidara's clay bird. Kakashi looked back at Sakura and Chiyo. He felt that Chiyo, who was familiar with the battle of puppeteers, and Sakura, who was proficient in detoxification and monstrous strength, should be able to hold on for a while under Sasori's attack. Therefore, he also caught up with Naruto's departing figure in a few flashes. Watching Deidara leave with Naruto and Kakashi, Sasori also turned his gaze back to his grandmother Chiyo. "Grandma, to be honest, I don't want to do anything to you. If you decide to go back now, I will never stop you." Hearing Sasori's words, Chiyo sneered without a trace, as if she had heard something very funny. "Sasori, if it were any other situation, Grandma would never do anything to you. Even when you left Sunagakure, Grandma didn't directly kill you. But this time, you've gone too far. The leader of Sunagakure was kidnapped by you to extract bijou, and all kinds of losses are shocking. I'm your grandmother, but I'm also a ninja of Sunagakure." After listening to Chiyo's words, Sasori seemed to be touched by something. His originally calm, hoarse, and low voice suddenly raised a lot and said to Chiyo, "Don't mention them. Don't mention Sunagakure. Don't mention." There are many reasons for Sasori's defection from Sunagakure. There are reasons for his addiction to the study of puppets, and also his disgust for Sunagakure itself. However, when Grandma Chiyo was young, she was busy with various affairs in Sunagakure and ignored Sasori's emotions. Concealing the news of his parents' death is also an extremely important reason. This is the urgency in Sasori's heart, but at this moment, it was directly said by Chiyo. In fact, when Chiyo said these words, she already regretted it, but what's the use of regret? Today, Chiyo came to make up for her mistakes. Chapter 380. Sasori, do you really think I care about whether I can live long or not? Hearing Sasori's almost tempting words, Chiyo smiled as if she didn't care at all. She even thought that Sasori's words were funny. In my life, I've really experienced too much. Starting from a basic puppet master in Sunagakure, I slowly climbed step by step to the position of Sunagakure's elder group consultant. Not to say that I'm above thousands of people, but I'm also a high position. For so many years, I've done a lot of things that I think are right, and I've also done a lot of things that I know are wrong, but I have to do it. The ups and downs of life, I don't want to taste it anymore. Maybe in your opinion, having a long life is an extremely happy thing, but the world is a sea of bitterness, and life is also a time of ups and downs in the sea of bitterness. There's no need to be so persistent. Chiyo's wrinkled face showed a kind smile at the moment, although it was not so beautiful, it was so warm. For a while, Sasori was a little stunned. Involuntarily, Sasori's mind slowly emerged the time when he and his grandmother depended on each other. At this moment, he didn't know why, but he felt that it was unexpectedly beautiful. But Sasori fiercely cut off this idea in his head. Eternity is my pursuit. I've been walking on the road of eternity. The reason why my grandmother denied me so much is that she didn't realize how happy eternity is. As long as I can transform my grandmother into the same existence as myself, I can definitely let my grandmother understand me. Moreover, Orochimaru's Edo Tensei is a ninjutsu that can summon the soul of a person. As long as my spy can get this ninjutsu from Orochimaru, coupled with my top puppet technique, I can resurrect my dead parents. My dream, the warm home I yearn for, seems to be getting closer and closer to me at this moment. How can I give up at such a moment? He stretched out his hand and took out a scroll from his sleeve. He slowly opened the scroll, and a big 3 was written in a complicated circle. He injected chakra into the scroll, and a humanoid puppet was released from the scroll. 3 generations of Kazekage? The moment she saw the puppet, Chiyo couldn't help but exclaim, I didn't expect Akatsuki to have such a deep enmity with Sunagakure. The 3 generations Kazekage who suddenly disappeared, the 4th Kazekage who was killed by Orochimaru's plan, and the 5th Kazekage whose life you just took. All of you have committed grave sins. Grandma, don't say that. Hearing Chiyo's words, Sasori began to deny. The death of 3 generations Kazekage and 5th Kazekage is indeed related to me, but that guy Orochimaru has already betrayed Akatsuki organization. This snake's den is everywhere, and even the leader of our organization gave up after chasing him for a while. As Scorpion spoke, his face revealed a secret smile that only he knew. Sakura, on the other hand, was lost in thought. Sakura's mind was filled with Sasuke's voice and appearance, and the pain he felt when he was determined to leave Wood Leaf. Do you know where Orochimaru is? Sakura's voice was a bit low, as if she was trying to suppress her emotions, but she still said to Sasori in a bad tone. Scorpion was an extremely arrogant person. When he heard Xiao Ying's questioning tone, his slightly immature face had already furrowed his brows slightly. Looking at Sakura, Sasori slowly raised his hand, and the puppet controlled by 3 generations of Kazekage moved instantly, and rushed to the front of Sakura at a very fast speed. The right hand of 3 generations of Kazekage puppet turned into a sharp blade with a burst of mechanical sound. Chiyo saw that Sakura didn't dodge, and quickly manipulated a fragment of Hirajutsu to block in front of Sakura, hoping to block the aggressive attack of this puppet. However, this fragment of Hirajutsu, which was obviously made of special materials, was torn apart wantonly like a piece of cloth under the attack of the Kazekage puppet's sharp blade. If one observed carefully, it wasn't difficult to see that although the sharp blade of the Kazekage puppet's right hand looked cold, there was a small black iron sand floating on it. This is naturally the iron sand that can be controlled by 3 generations of Kazekage's unique secret technique, magnet release. It seems that Sasori has made a lot of progress compared to when he was in the blood-clothed pavilion. He no longer used the magnet release of 3 generations of Kazekage's rigid technique, but used it flexibly on the puppet's body. Sasori, didn't your grandmother tell you to be respectful and gentle to women? Chiyo's slightly old voice sounded, as if she was blaming Sasori. When Sasori followed the voice and looked at his grandmother, he found that in front of Chiyo, there were 2 puppets that he was very familiar with. This is your father and mother. I haven't seen them for so many years, don't you miss them? They are nothing but insignificant puppets, they are all made by me, so I know their ability best. Grandma, don't tell me you took them out just to make some psychological attack. Looking at these 2 puppets that he had personally made, Sasori forced himself to maintain a calm state of mind. These are nothing but 2 puppets, as long as I can succeed, I will have conscious parents who can love me, and not 2 ice-cold puppets. I can't lose. He still had a reason to continue winning. Looking at Sasori's appearance at this moment, Chiyo didn't know why her heart was also faintly aching. Although her grandson was very intelligent since childhood, but he was also extremely stubborn, as long as he decided to do something, he would not give in the slightest. This time it seems that Sasori is beginning to be obsessed with something, so what can I do? After thinking about it, perhaps I can only do my best to stop him, right? No matter what price I have to pay, I can't let my grandson continue to make mistakes. Akatsuki organization is not a good place, and I can't let Sasori stay in such a place. Even if I have to kill my grandson, I can't let my grandson make more irreparable mistakes. Chapter 381. Let's put aside the battle between Sasori, Chiyo, and Sakura for the time being. Let's turn our attention to Kakashi and Naruto, who had just chased Deidara away. Looking at Deidara sitting on a huge stone not far from him, Kakashi didn't know why, but a different kind of tension suddenly emerged in his heart. When Sakura saved Kankuro in the Sunigakure, Baki, who served as the Kazekage's assistant in the Sunigakure, also told him some information about the 2 ninjas who attacked the Sunigakure this time. This Deidara in front of him, in Baki's words, is a very destructive character who is good at sneaking in and is close to a core destroyer. Generally, such ninjas are the most vigilant target in the war, but in such a small-scale battle, they are also the most vulnerable ninjas, because most of them are weak in single attacks. Kakashi, who was full of confidence, at this moment, couldn't help but feel some inexplicable panic in his heart. Oh! He's worthy of being a veteran Jonin of Konoha. He noticed that something was wrong so quickly. But unfortunately, you are still 1 step behind. You have now completely fallen into this uncle's trap. Although I don't want to cooperate with this guy, but since he was sent by the boss, there is no other way. Deidara looked at Kakashi with an expression of success, but when Deidara said, "that guy," the resentment from the depths of his heart was so clear, as if this person has a big hatred with Deidara. It seems that the internal affairs of Akatsuki are not so harmonious. Kakashi quietly put this information in his heart, although he doesn't know whether it will be useful or not, but there is always some harvest. Putting aside these complicated thoughts, Kakashi slowly moved his steps closer to Naruto, and Naruto seemed to have calmed down slightly because of the change in atmosphere. He also took the initiative to approach his instructor Kakashi and cooperated with him to guard the surroundings. "I say, Dead Ale, you keep calling my partner that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that makes me very unhappy." Just when the scene was dead silent, a somewhat rough voice sounded in everyone's ears. Then, the owner of this voice, a tall and burly man with a bluish face that resembled a shark, appeared in everyone's eyes. Facing Kisame's half-threatening half-joking words, Deidara also said with a bad mood, "Humph, that guy regards my beautiful art as nothing. Want me to respect him, is simply a joke. Art?" Listening to Deidara's words, Kisame slowly opened his mouth, revealing his sharp teeth, and said to Deidara, "I don't understand so much about art in your mouth. In my opinion, using my shark muscles to torture my opponent is the most exciting time. Ho, ho 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 ho." While speaking, the ghost mermaid let out an ear-piercing laugh. Kisame, shut up." Just when Kisame was laughing wantonly, a slightly cold voice sounded behind Kisame. Dressed in the iconic Akatsuki uniform with black background and red clouds, it looked like a medium-length hair with a middle parting. Of course, what was more eye-catching was the pair of 3 Tomo Sharingan that was constantly rotating in the eye sockets. Itachi Uchiha. Looking at this person, Naruto slowly called out his name. This was both Sasuke's brother and the man who had been chasing him and Jiraiya in the ninja world for nearly 2 years. And Kisame, who originally looked very rampant, actually quieted down after hearing Itachi's voice. "Long time no see, Kakashi Hatake." After greeting Kakashi, he looked at Naruto and said, "We meet again, Uzumaki Naruto." But at this moment, Kakashi had no desire to talk to Itachi Uchiha at all. Instead, his eyes were constantly moving between Deidara, Kisame, and Itachi Uchiha. These 3 people were not easy to deal with. If it was only one of them, Kakashi believed that he could cooperate with Naruto to defeat the other party. If there were 2 people, Kakashi could guarantee that he could protect their lives and leave safely with all his strength. But now, Kakashi was facing 3 powerful people, and Kakashi was not sure at all. "Naruto." Kakashi lowered his voice and said to Naruto, "I can stop these guys for a while. You must run away as soon as you see the opportunity. You are the column force of our village, you can't fall into the hands of Akatsuki organization like this, you know?" Naruto wanted to refute Kakashi, but what greeted Naruto was Kakashi's serious eyes. Naruto was naturally more aware than Kakashi of Akatsuki organization's desire for the 9 tails in his body. Leaving at this time was indeed the most correct choice. But Naruto couldn't help but remember the time when he had just become a genin, Kakashi's theory about trash and scum. In the constant struggle, Naruto's expression changed from struggle to confusion, and from confusion to certainty, as if there was a voice in his heart that helped Naruto make up his mind. Ninjutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. With a simple handprint in his hand, Shadow Clone Jutsu was skillfully displayed by Naruto. A total of 5 shadow clones including the main body helped each other at this moment. Each of them was holding a Rasengan in their hand, and directly rushed in the direction of Kisame, Deidara, and Itachi. "Hey! Futon, Rasengan!" The 5 shadow clones shouted the name of Rasengan together, staggered forward with each other to confuse the opponent's line of sight. Then suddenly, the 5 shadow clones were divided into 3 groups, 2 of which had 2 Naruto holding Rasengan, and 1 group had only 1 Rasengan holding Naruto. A group of 2 people rushed toward Itachi and Kisame, and a group of 1 person rushed toward Deidara. The change in the situation is very obvious. It seems that in Naruto's heart, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame are much more dangerous than Deidara, so he made such a distribution, right? Itachi and Kisame naturally didn't have any idea, but Deidara, who has always seemed to be unruly but actually cares about the attitude of others towards him, was full of resentment. "What, you think highly of Itachi and Kisame, but look down on me?" Looking at Naruto rushing toward him, although he didn't know whether it was the main body or the shadow clone, Deidara was ready to directly blow this Naruto rushing toward him into powder. Chapter 382. When Itachi Uchiha, Kisame, and Deidara thought that they had seen through Naruto's attack trajectory. Naruto's two groups of two suddenly turned their feet, and all of them directly rushed towards Deidara. The three members of Akatsuki weren't standing very far away. In addition, Naruto's main body and clones had accelerated over a relatively long distance before. Suddenly, they changed direction. It was unknown whether it was Naruto's main body or clones, but their speed was also very fast. For a moment, Naruto, who should have been attacking three people separately, had already pressed 5 Rasengan in his hand towards Deidara's face. Naruto's behavior was actually traceable. Just now, when he was attacking and sprinting, Naruto constantly changed his pace in order to test the best turning angle to maintain his speed. But at that time, who would have thought that Naruto would expose his back to the other two members of Akatsuki, and turn to besiege one person? After all, Naruto's main body is Naruto's main body really among them? After all, the battlefield is a fast-paced place, and in many cases, it's impossible to think carefully. On the contrary, Kakashi, who was neither the attacker nor the defender, was standing on the side of the battlefield ready to support Naruto at any time, could see it more clearly. Naruto was no longer the same as before, who only knew how to charge blindly. At this moment, Naruto had begun to try to use tactics flexibly, and speculate the enemy's psychology. Now looking at the 5 Naruto rushing towards Deidara, Kakashi also quickly took out kunai and shurikens from his body, and used his only Sharingan to the extreme, and began to block Itachi Uchiha and Kisame to help Deidara out of the predicament. Unexpectedly, the kunai and shurikens, which he thought could only play a role in restraining Itachi Uchiha and Kisame at this moment, seemed to be really exhausting to deal with them. Although their Sharingan couldn't be faked, Kakashi felt that there seemed to be something wrong with their bodies. When dodging kunai and shurikens, there was always a certain degree of stiffness. Although he didn't know the reason, Kakashi believed that if Itachi Uchiha and Kisame were in this state, he could defeat them. Just when Kakashi was still confidently beginning to analyze his victory record, Deidara, who was originally full of confidence, had a drastic change in his expression at this moment. Although he usually had a fearless appearance, when a crisis really befell him without warning, the fear that came from the bottom of his heart could not be concealed. Naruto saw all of this, and even in Naruto's mind, the scene of Deidara's body being attacked by 5 Rasengan began to emerge. When the Rasengan got closer and closer to his body, Deidara's originally very obvious expression of fear seemed to solidify and became stiff for some reason. Naruto felt that something was wrong and wanted to stop the attack, but Deidara's body suddenly faded from its original color and became a color similar to the explosive clay that Deidara often used, but obviously, the purity was lower. It may be that ordinary soil was used, and then the explosive clay was mixed to complete the purpose of plasticity and control. Naruto tried his best to stop his body, but Deidara, who was molded by clay, suddenly sprang out several hands made of clay, firmly entangling all the 5 shadow clones of Naruto who were close to him. Ha ha ha. I thought I could only blow up one of the clones to vent my anger, but I didn't expect that they were all aimed at me. I like it very much. Since I like it, I should let you become part of my art. Pseudo. C3. 18. Art is explosion. Standing a little further away, when the word explosion came out of Deidara's mouth, the clay puppet called Pseudo 18 by Deidara also began to swell. Although there was no earth-shattering explosion like the one that attacked Sunagakure before, it was still powerful enough. Layers of airwaves emanated from the center of the explosion, blowing away Kakashi's shurikens and kunai. Itachi Uchiha and Kisame quickly used chakra to stabilize their bodies, but their clothes were still blown by the strong wind. What a beautiful scene! If it weren't for saving Column Force's life, this explosion could be at least 3 times stronger. It seemed that it was a pity, Deidara comforted himself. Wind release, breakthrough. Itachi Uchiha's cold voice suddenly sounded. At this moment, Itachi's hand seals were flying, and a ninjutsu was quickly completed. Although this wind release is not a powerful ninjutsu, it is easy to blow away the smoke that shrouded Sudo. 18. After all, Itachi Uchiha, who has rich combat experience and meticulous mind, has noticed that something is wrong at this moment. Did he start to use wind release to disperse the smoke and confirm his thoughts? Just when the wind was about to approach the thick smoke, a somewhat muffled sound came from under Deidale's feet. "Caught you, you bastard." This voice was so familiar, it was obviously Naruto's voice. Itachi Uchiha also instantly understood what the vague premonition in his heart was about. It turned out that the 5 Naruto just now were all shadow clones used to confuse the public. Was the real killer hiding underground? The ground instantly burst open, and Naruto's figure flew out of it. At the same time, Naruto also shouted in his mouth, "Wind release, Rasengan." Naruto actually changed the method of using shadow clones to assist in Rasengan. At this moment, he has already cast Rasengan with one hand. But this Rasengan obviously does not have the stable light that it usually has. Instead, it is bright for a while and dark for a while. It looks like it may explode at any time. Yes, Naruto actually hasn't mastered the method of one-handed Rasengan at the moment, but in order not to waste such a surprise attack opportunity, Naruto is also betting that his one-handed Rasengan will succeed. Using his signature ninjutsu Rasengan at an amazing speed, Naruto's blow hit Deidara's chin. The huge impact directly sent Deidara flying, and Naruto also stood in place with a tired look, gasping quickly. Who would have thought that Naruto has grown to such an extent? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.